and welcome to the April 25th, 2011 Goffstown Board of Selectmen's meeting. Our first item is the Pledge of Allegiance. All rise. And Nick, would you lead us, please?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Okay. First item of business is acceptance or the corrections of the 418 public and non-public minutes.
We didn't get to the non-public, so it's just a public in there.
Okay, just the public.
Motion to accept. Second.
Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, it passed unanimous. Next item is announcements. We have a proclamation, which is to keep Goffstown Beautiful Week, and I assume we have somebody here on behalf of that, or? Can you just, I'll come right up there. Yeah, I'll come right up there. Oh, yeah, I'm sorry.
It's all right. Sit? Stand?
Yeah, right here, right over here. Okay. Then we have Gene Walker on behalf, no, stand up. I'm giving you a proclamation on behalf of the garden, that's why you're here.
Yeah, I know.
Okay, Gene Walker on behalf of the Garden Club, our proclamation. It's Town of Goffstown, whereas the Goffstown Community Garden Club is sponsoring a campaign to keep Goffstown beautiful during the week of April 24th through April 30th, 2011. And whereas the Goffstown Community Garden Club is encouraging businesses, organizations, and homeowners to pick up, clean up, and spruce up streets, lawns, parks, corners, roadways, etc., as well as around private homes throughout the community. And now, therefore, we, the Board of Selectmen of the Town of Goffstown, County of Hillsborough, State of New Hampshire, by the virtue of the authority vested in us, do hereby proclaim that April 24th through April 30th, 2011 be designated as Keep Goffstown Beautiful Week throughout the town of Goffstown, New Hampshire, and urge all the citizenry of the town of Goffstown to participate in the efforts to pick up, clean up, and spruce up all the areas of the community throughout that period. We also urge all townspeople to recycle their newspapers, magazines, mixed paper, plastic, aluminum, and steel tin cans, bottles, and corrugated cardboard by utilizing Goffstown's curbside recycling program or visiting the Goffstown transfer station located at 404 Elm Street, given under our hands and sealed this 25th day of April 2011.
Thank you.
Congratulations for all the work the Garden Club does.
Thanks to the fund for their plant sale. When's that coming up?
Yeah, all right. And Jean,
Yes.
you have a plant sale coming up too, don't you?
Yes, we do. She just gave us the permit for the 21st of May.
May 21st?
Yes.
That's a Saturday, right?
It is. We'd love to have everyone come to it.
What time is it?
It starts at 8 o'clock.
8 o'clock in the morning, and it's,
Usually sold out by 11.
and where is it?
It's on the Goffstown Common.
At the Goffstown Common, May 21st, 8 a.m.
Yes.
And get there early, because they
Get
usually
there
sell
early,
out.
right. Okay, thank you very
Okay,
much.
you're welcome. Okay. Do we have any other announcements?
There are at tab 2.
Yep. Okay. I'll leave that one for you.
Oh, the first one? The
That's what I-
handwritten one?
Because you can't read it.
Dear Kathy, thank you so much for joining us at the Animal Rescue League of New Hampshire on Saturday, April 2nd at our Bow Wow Bedford event. As the league serves over 67 towns in southern New Hampshire and Nashua.
In northern Mass.
Oh, northern Mass, okay, yeah, I couldn't read that. We really want to get the word out that we work with towns, thank you.
Outside
Should
of
put
it.
my glasses on for this. Outside of Bedford. Having you here really helped with the message. Plus, it provided a needed service to our community. Thank you, Robin
I would guess McClure.
McClure. And that was that event they had, and I guess it was well attended.
It was, in fact.
You went there?
My wife brought her dogs there, and,
Are they your dogs?
no, I don't own the dogs.
rescue dog.
But no, it's a really a good event, and for $10, you have your rabies shots, and they automatically get a hold of Kathy, and the
Registration?
registration's all set.
You had your rabies shot.
The dog did.
Oh.
You almost got you there.
Yes.
Okay, we also have a traffic alert, Mass Road Sewer Project, Goffstown Sewer Commission. It's April 22nd announcement. The Goffstown Sewer Commission announces the continuation of sewer construction related to the ARA-funded Mass Road Sewer Project. Construction on the main sewer line between Daniel Plummer Road and Joffrey Street will begin the week of April 25th and is expected to last 4 weeks. Mast Road will be open to all residential and business traffic throughout the day and to through traffic each night. Delays may be encountered in the work zone as only one lane of alternating traffic flow can be accommodated. Daytime through traffic can use Daniel Plummer to St. Anselm Drive to College Ave as a detour route to avoid unnecessary delays, which are expected Monday through Friday, approximately 7 a.m. to 4 p.m. Portions of night work are tentatively scheduled after the main line work is completed, starting May 22nd. Separate traffic alerts will be issued prior to this work commencing. This notice, a detour map, project updates, the construction schedule, and plans are posted on the town's website, www.goffstown.com. Please contact Bob Morisseau, HTA Inspector, at 603-234-0312 with any questions. Thank you for your patience. Also, my understanding is that the businesses will be open regular hours. Right? Anything else on this?
You're really good with the French names, I noticed that.
Whatever. One other item that we have is we had sent a letter to our sister city in Japan, Kunitachi.
Yep.
And we did receive a response. For those of you that are relatively new to the community, we had an ongoing relationship with Kunitachi, Japan. It was a sister city, and they had sent students here every year for quite a while. We had a couple of occasions we had students from Goffstown reciprocate by going and spending time with Japanese families there. And if you look through some of the past reports, whenever they were here, their photographs were here. So we did write a letter to them regarding our concern about the earthquake and the nuclear disaster that they were encountering. And we did get a response. Dear Honorable Chairman Phil Devanza, Nick Campusano, Steve Forney, Scott Gross, David Pierce, thank you very much for the heartwarming letter mentioning your sympathy for the earthquake in the Tohoku District on March 11th, 2011. I deeply appreciate your kindness, even though we have not been kept in touch for a long time. The earthquake disaster brought down unprecedented damage in the wide range of Japan. We also felt strong shakes on the day, although Kunitachi City is more than 150 miles away from the earthquake center, and therefore we did not receive serious damages. It has passed 1 month since we had the earthquake disaster. The restoration activities in the affected areas are currently in full scale. We are transporting relief supplies from Kunitachi City to the affected areas, accepting the victims temporarily living in Kunitachi City, and collecting relief donations as much as possible. In this way, we are making extensive efforts towards earliest possible restoration and revival of the stricken areas. It must be true that we need much more time and capital to recover the entire country. Accordingly, we, staff of Kunitachi City, are currently working really hard to overcome the national crisis by exceeding the framework of the municipality. It would be much appreciated if people in Goffstown kindly support us by sending a letter to the victims living in Kunitachi City in order to encourage them. I understand that this is an imprudent favor to ask of you. However, I strongly believe that your kind message would surely encourage people in Kunitachi City, the affected areas in entire Japan. I wish everything goes well with you and we can rebuild our friendship from now on. Sincerely, Mayor Hiroshu Segaguchi from Japan. I would suggest that we put this letter up on the website. And there's also possibly, we might be able to get in touch with some of the past families that were host families that might have some addresses. And perhaps we could find somebody that might be interested in being a contact person to try to coordinate some of this. Yes?
So could we see if the Goffstown News would do
Publish
a
it.
story on this?
Yeah.
You know, as far as our relationship, copy of the letter and where people could write,
Sure.
send letters?
Right.
And would it be appropriate to send a copy of this to the SAU?
Yeah, why don't we do, yeah. I think that's a good idea.
And once again, with that, put a clear address of how one would write to the town hall and
Mm-hmm.
the city.
We'll send a copy of our letter because that arrived
Right.
there.
And
And
actually-
they responded by email, actually.
We might have some addresses in the stuff that we have from Gona Township. So we might be able to take.
Yeah, if they have an email address, that'd be
We
even
have,
easier.
we
Yeah.
have the email address.
Yeah.
That's how they responded. We gave them our email in the letter we sent to them because we didn't have their email.
Oh, okay.
But
Okay.
they did respond by email.
Oh, so this came as an attachment? then?
Yes.
Okay, good. Yeah, all right,
We
that's a
had
good
some difficulty opening the attachment, but he sent it in a second type of format, which we were able to open.
Oh, okay. Okay, great. Anything else on this subject? Okay, but perhaps we can try to keep an update on this to see how everything's going with this. Great. Thank you. Okay, our next item is public comment, and at this time, we will take public comment from any members of the public who would like to make a comment. Yes, and we're gonna need your name for the record, Jason.
Jason Sachs, Blackbrook Road. I'm here because I'm a little bit concerned about the process that this board has taken regarding the reappointment of Conservation Commissioners Evelyn Miller and Kimberly Pease. And I just wanted to bring a couple of things to the board's attention and ask you to please reconsider the course that you're taking and to approve them in a timely manner. I printed out a paragraph from the RSA's covering the Conservation Commission, and I'd like to read the first two sentences of that. This is section 36A:2 on Conservation Commissions, and it says, "A city or town which accepts the provisions of this chapter may establish a Conservation Commission, hereinafter called a commission, for the proper utilization and protection of the natural resources and for the protection of watershed resources of said city or town. Such commission shall conduct researches into its local land and water areas and shall seek to coordinate the activities of unofficial bodies organized for similar purposes, and may advertise, prepare, print, and distribute books, maps, charts, plans, and pamphlets which, in its judgment, it deems necessary for its work." The rest of the paragraph basically goes into saying the Conservation Commission can research wetlands and marshlands and open space and so forth. And I guess I'm concerned because it's either not clear why the board has not approved them, or there's some reasons that have to do with things that are outside their scope of work. The Conservation Commission, like some of the other boards in town, the Sewer Commission, the Historic District Commission, have a fairly narrow scope of work. And for the Conservation Commission to make decisions that aren't based on the utilization of the town's natural resources would be as inappropriate as the Historic District Commission making decisions because of the sewer system of the town, or economic development making decisions because of the way the school system works. And I'm just worried that there seems to be some sort of a standoff going on that I don't think would help the town. I'm familiar with the board. I'm familiar with the Conservation Commission. I served as an alternate for 3 years between, I think, 2002 to 2005. And I know most of the commissioners, and I'm familiar with both Kimberly and Evelyn, and I feel like they are qualified for the duties of the Conservation Commission, and would hope that the board would quickly reappoint them to to the commission. It seems to me like there's 3 courses of action that you can take at this point for each of them, and one of them is to reappoint them. The second is not to appoint, and then give some reasons why they might be not suitable for the duties of the Conservation Commission. And then the third would be to appoint someone else, and the RSAs do allow this board to basically appoint anyone that you feel appropriate for the Conservation Commission. But I would caution the board not to appoint someone just because you feel that they might be more friendly to business, or that they might be a better communicator with you or other boards. Conservation Commission does not have particularly strong powers given by the RSAs. It's an advisory board, both to you and the state and the planning board. If the Conservation Commission makes recommendations, all 3 of those entities are free to take that advice and do with it what they see appropriate. So I guess I would ask you to please do the right thing for this town and reappoint them. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jason.
Is there anybody else who'd like to make a comment? Yes, we're gonna need your name, Susan.
I'm also a member of the Conservation Commission, and Jason and I had not communicated, but I printed out the purposes of the Conservation Commission because I wanted you to think about this when you make your appointments. And the purpose of the Conservation Commission, as stated in bylaws, shall be to ensure the proper utilization and protection of the natural resources of Goffstown, to further the awareness of conservation practices and policies throughout the town, and to protect the watershed resources of the town. And there was another little paragraph I wanted to read, or sentence I wanted to read, which was Article 8, and it has to do with the town consultations. The commission is the only board specifically charged with the protection of the town's natural resources. Therefore, they should be available to the various town boards, planning, zoning, board of adjustment, water precinct, sewer commission, public works, and selectmen for consultation. And I very strongly, I've been on this board for many, many years, and I feel very strongly that the 2 people that are up to be reappointed are probably 2 of the most qualified people. Kim being very versed and works in the wetland areas, and Evelyn has been on the board and has a lot of history as to why in a lot of developments land was set aside. Sometimes you have to go back and say, you know, what happened here, and why is this set up this way? And we need some history there for people to be able to say, this is why this was done, and this is why no further development can occur. And I've heard from other people, and they say, well, you're negative toward development. And I can say to that we are not. We can only deal with what the rules and regulations say. And if a landowner has land and it's appropriately zoned, we can't make a personal opinion and say, well, we'd love to have that piece and we'd love to have it protected. You know, we have to go along with what the zoning says and what the laws are. And, you know, we're charged with protecting our natural resources. That is the bottom line. And I'm just speaking to, you know, hopefully support the 2 people that are up to be, you know, renominated.
Thank you very much. Anybody else would like to speak publicly? Seeing none?
I will
No.
speak.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I didn't speak to either one of them before I got here tonight, because I did come for Garden Club, Jean Walker.
Right.
But I am also a commissioner, and I have worked real closely with Evelyn for quite a few years. She has taught me a lot, because she was on way before I was. And Kimberly Pease she is a soil scientist, and she does have a lot of knowledge, and she can really help. And we really would like to support them for our board, and please do what is right for the town. And we really are not against development, and we are really trying to protect what the town really needs to have protected, and the watershed and everything. So I would just like to say I, too, would like to support them. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there anybody else who'd like to make a public comment? Seeing none, we will move on to a 6:20 appointment. that we have, which is Lorraine Cottle and the Assistant Town Administrator, Derek Horn, regarding review of the Mary Lou preschool lease.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We've reviewed the two-year lease, which was signed between Mary Lou and the town in the summer of 2010, and runs through June of 2012 this year, as called for in the lease. Mary Lou and Lorraine were very easy to work with, and they provided us all the necessary documentation, including a liability insurance certificate and a key holder list of everyone that has keys to Mary Lou. And we walked through the building last week, and everything was fine. The only issue was with some of the storage on the third floor, and Lorraine, through conversations with her, have provided that situation will be rectified next week, so.
Okay. Any questions?
I have one.
Nick?
Just if I could, how is everything working from your end?
Everything's working well. I spoke with Derek about that. The only issue we had was the workmen are working on the second floor. We had an issue Friday, but it seems to be resolved for now. They were shellacking or something, and we had a strong odor, and the staff were thinking that it might have been propane or heating oil or a spill of some kind, but it turns out it was something they were doing on the second floor, and they've since vented it a little bit. Still smells, but we'll see how it goes. We have no school this week, so we're hoping that it just goes
Okay.
away.
Scott?
And this may be more of a, I don't know, maybe you or Mary Lou, the playground area out front, is there the potential of having that in the back of the building, or is that completely
It will
impossible?
be, when the final phase is done, that's part, the plan is to relocate to the back.
And it just can't be done now, or is that, or? I say that because it's a historic building, and aesthetically, it would be nicer if it was in the back.
Well, part of what you deal with that also is when the lead abatement was done.
Yeah.
Lead abatement was completely done in the front. All the clapboards were replaced in the front.
But not in the back.
No, but the final phase calls for those, there's only one small section of clapboard that will be exposed, but those get replaced. And that's all addressed in the final phase.
And that would be the addition to the ADA addition. And so you
Correct.
wouldn't want the playground in a construction zone when that's going up out back.
Because you have a potential
Yep,
too
I'm good.
of getting screws or nails inside with the stuff, with the kids, so. Any other questions or comments?
There's no action on the board?
No, this is not up for renewal till
Right.
next
This is
Should be
just,
next summer.
right, this is just because it's a 2-year,
just review them annually.
okay?
Thank you for reviewing the lease.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Do you have anything else for us, Rick?
I believe I scheduled also with the SAU, but I believe Phil Pancos was going to be here, so I don't know if you want to put that off till a little later.
Right, I think that's scheduled for 6:30.
Okay.
Okay, you don't mind hanging around, do you?
No.
Oh, okay. We like to have people here, you know. You know, Lorraine, you're welcome to stay here too. Okay.
If I could, with the chairman's permission and the interim until, if we have a few minutes. I just want to bring something up in looking at the contracts. And I noticed last week we had a contract that had expired before we got to, there's another one tonight that expired, I think, in January. When you look through all of these contracts, they're in different formats because various departments kind of take the contracts and they deal with them. And I wanted to suggest tonight that we look at the possibility of taking all of the contracts and placing them within one person's responsibility. My thought, I'm thinking the assistant town administrator. I'm just saying that because obviously I don't know what those, added duties would be. But I'm looking, I think it would be prudent to have one individual with all of the contracts, create a tickler file, notify the board in a timely fashion. All the contracts should look the same, read fairly the same, other than the content, because that changes. But I think it streamlines the process, and then we have advance notice when these contracts are becoming due. Department heads, whoever's responsible for that particular area, whether it's the police department, fire department, whoever, would have input at that time as to whether there are increases or changes. But I think it would be prudent to have one individual handling all of these contracts.
Okay, there's one issue that we have, though. Some of those agencies that the contracts are with are dealt with departments. There's there is, sometimes there's a certain.
Municipal, I'm thinking off the top of my head, there's probably like 15 or 20 of these things throughout the town. You know, dispatch, prosecutorial, we have
Solid
these.
waste.
Solid waste, we have the one at
Right.
fire department with the one with New Boston we just did. We got
One
these
with the marshal
leases,
service, we have one.
right, you name it. I mean, it could be even little things like copier contracts and things like that we have, but I think it'll be a good thing that there is one person here at town hall who would also know other than the department head. That I think is important.
If I could just address that. And I'm not saying that the contracts don't reside. I mean, obviously, the department heads would need to make sure the contracts are being followed. What I'm suggesting is that there's one individual who brings them to the board in a timely fashion, creates the initial one in consultation with the department head. But once the contract is entered into, obviously, that responsible department would get a copy of it to make sure that the terms are being adhered to. I'm not asking for one person to oversee all the contracts.
Just coordinate.
Coordinate,
Right. That's what I was.
revise, write initially, update. That's the only thing I'm looking for, so that it's coming from one person,
And you're getting notice of it a month or so before you have to review it?
or more, depending on the
Actually,
complexity of the
I agree
contract.
with Nick totally, and I'm thinking, not the idea of a month, the idea of, what, in other words, it would be calendared, you'd be able to see what contracts are coming up during the course of the year. And part of that, there'd be probably a heads up for each quarter, here, the ones coming up each quarter also, because normally the first time we see them is, right about when they're looking for action on them. Good time to take a look at it and see what the environment is at that time.
Okay, we want to make a suggestion, why don't we have the town administrator discuss that with staff and see what the best is? Because the only concern I would have is to be dumping it all onto the assistant town administrator. It might be easier if they were in the finance department. And so I don't know the answer to that, so I'm just saying, my suggestion is to let the town administrator discuss that with staff and come up with a suggestion to us.
Sure.
Is that acceptable?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, great. All right, 6:28. No, 6:30 appointment is not here yet.
Bring on the police chief.
Bring on the police chief. My only concern is if we bring on the police chief, right now, we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 items. And I would hate, 4 of them are leases. I'd hate to get into discussion on leases and then have to break up the discussion, that's all.
I'd just assume get our department head home.
And we could break the,
Break
break the
it up.
conversation
Yeah.
should Mr. Pancos appear.
Okay, you can come forward, chief.
You always have to keep the police chief happy. I've learned this.
I know, he has a gun.
Good evening.
Good evening, chief.
The first lease that I have before you is the Ware lease. I believe there was some discussion last week about it. What I have proposed now is a 2-year lease for $860.74 a month. Runs between April of 2011 and December 31st of 2012, along with the wishes of the board to end on the calendar year. Part of that is a notification of November 1st if they wish to continue with the lease. The reason there are no increases in these leases, during 2010, the Ware Fire Department gave $634.50 towards training cost for the department. In 2011, they gave $107.25 for training costs. So above and beyond the contracted price, they're also allowing our dispatchers to be trained and certified in fire dispatch as well. So they're contributing on that part. If there was a 2% increase in the contract price, it'd work out to about $193. So we're above our 2% increases, even for the next 2 years on this.
So it actually works out to be probably closer to 10% if you took it on a percentage basis of what they
Roughly.
contribute. Any questions or comments from the board?
I was here last week, we could have probably not had that 20-minute discussion, but it's okay.
Sorry.
To the Skype thing. No, that was one of my big things was, I want, at least I want us to keep current with, if we're having 2% increases, then with 3% increases, I'd like to see that. And it seems like the exchange for the training at least accomplishes that. The other thing is, it aimed to give us a notification in November when we're doing our budget, so we've got that accomplished, and then, in looking over this, there's an out at any time, by either party. And I believe that was, with or without cause, right?
Is that still in that sheet?
I believe we took that out.
Take that one out?
Yeah.
Okay,
I believe that was the wish of the board, as I understood it.
Look for it.
yeah.
I mean, it can be put back in easy enough.
Yeah, that was one that was in there last week, I kinda like that.
You like that?
I liked it from our end.
Oh.
Well, that's why it's in the way it is,
Yeah.
it's mutual.
Right.
So,
Just a comment, I still have reservations, I realize I'm probably in the minority on this, but if I'm just doing some quick math, it's about $1,500, even with the training cost was the fee that they paid last year. And if we were doing $15 an hour for our people with staff, we're talking a total of 10 hours of 10 hours. That's what, essentially, that was the billing time at $15 an hour. I just don't see that. I think that's a heck of a deal. That's all I'm trying to get at. Do you follow where I'm going at?
No.
In other words,
No.
all right, let's say we take the yearly fee, we add in that training fee, we're around $1,500 a year, is that fair?
Yes.
And if we were having someone work at $15 an hour, which is much less than what we do, that would just be 10 hours. In other words, that's what they've paid for, is 10 hours through the course of the year. And when you add in the training, the time pieces, if I'm the other municipality, I think it's a great deal. I just don't think that that what we charge is reasonable with what the going rates and what salaries are in this day and age.
well, I understand what you're saying, Steve, but there's one thing that we have to consider here, is that without these leases, and if you do that type of a methodology and that thought process, then by doing that, you would be able to say, how many people are we gonna be able to be eliminating from the staff? And it doesn't work that way. Regardless of whether or not this lease is in effect, we still need to staff
Those amount of people, for
that.
the police
This
calls.
is an incidental amount of revenue that's coming in. It's a supplement, basically, is what it is.
And let me go to that, and here's where we bring to that other math picture. And let's just say Goffstown was to do 10 times as much, even, that would only be, in other words, if we were paying those same fee, we'd be doing it for $15,000. If I was to go 100 times that we were size and claims, we'd still be at, what, $150,000. I'm just throwing that out there.
I
When you
understand.
go to those, let me finish, when you go to those scales, I'm just saying there's, for some reason, there's a large cost with us for it, and and I understand that one can argue the value of it, and I understand those pieces. I'm just saying, but when we farm out those other pieces, the numbers don't even come close to what our costs are involved with it. That's the bottom line for me.
Well, let me just ask you this. If we were not to renew this lease, do you expect to see cost savings?
And what I'm saying now with that is that one can say that, but when all municipalities who provide the service offer it that much, you're driving the market, okay? And essentially, if everyone's lowering it all the time, it doesn't make much sense at $1,500. It just doesn't.
Just kind of as a clarification, we did renew the lease because we voted last week to extend a one-year contract. And I think part of that conversation was for us to then take the time to look at the prevailing market rates, to see if we are competitive, to see if we're overpriced, underpriced. So I think the board was willing to go forward and extend potentially longer contracts after that. But we wanted to be able to review the basic lease, the costs associated with it, to see if we were being competitive and not overprice ourselves out of the market. And I think that's why we voted last week to extend a one-year contract initially.
I just want to point out, for the term lease, it also says, it is further agreed that either party may request renegotiation of the rental amount.
Request.
Yeah, that doesn't mean it will be granted.
But if you had unusual events, as Selectman Forney was pointing out, that may be cause to discuss, for further discussion.
So where are we going from here?
Well, Selectman Capasano is correct, that the board did authorize last week's
year.
extension 1 week, but we didn't have,
1
1 year, sorry. But we didn't have answers to questions from the chief. You asked me what the training costs were, I didn't have that. And that's why I asked the chief to come in and also express some of the other concerns that were stated last week, which he attempted to incorporate into this particular lease.
Right, I understand. Well, my question still is, where are we going?
I'd be happy to keep it the way it was left last week and then
Yeah,
explore.
I mean, I think, can we find out,
The other
you know,
costs.
what other communities are charging? I mean, are there others that have dispatch? I mean, what
It
does
goes on calls, but calls of service for the most part.
other communities?
Right, like Goffstown Fire looked, several years ago at Concord Fire. They're well over $100,000 to take Goffstown because of the amount of calls,
Okay.
because of the amount of people in the town. And they have different formulas they
Okay.
figure. So I don't know off the top of my head what we would charge or what they would charge for these other towns.
And I guess that's, if I may, that's where I was going with it, is for us to look at those other dispatch centers that provide services, see what their rates are on a per-call basis, then figure out, based on whatever department is looking to enter into a lease with us, what their call volume is, and then price ourselves accordingly so that we're not pricing ourselves out of the market, but yet we are being competitive and optimizing the value of our dispatch.
I know the chief's put in a lot of time into
fine.
this.
And I think that kind of goes back to maybe what Selectman Forney was saying. You have put in a lot of time, and a lot of time for a few $1,000s, when you really think about it. We'll study this thing more than this contract is worth, and we spend more time on it than what this entire contract. So even if we lost the revenue, it would be neutral, because all the time that we spend talking about this thing, I am curious, and I've been curious the last couple of years as to how can community, and I know that, you know, we turn the switch off and there's state police, or they don't have, or they get an answering machine, and I've heard all those things, but, you know, what are other communities that are like sized? I mean, what are they doing? What is Bedford's dispatch, or Hooksit's dispatch, or Merrimack, or Londonderry? Give me some towns that are in the top 15 in terms of population. What are they doing? Are our costs kind of in line in terms of population, calls for service? And if they are, then we just have to kind of bite that bullet. If they're not, I guess I get concerned, and I've had this concern not just here at the Board of Selectmen, I've had it at when I used to be on the school board. It just seems as if, as a community that is you know, receives other towns or assists other towns, we shoulder a huge chunk of the financial burden, and I just never felt, whether it be this one or on the school side, that we got our costs back. I could be wrong, but then again, I've never seen the data, as Nick was saying, that said, hey, we've done it, and here's what it is.
And I don't mean to have you have wasted your time, because we did vote, we could extend a contract tomorrow, but it would be a one-year contract, and that would allow us the time to investigate, and maybe nothing will change, but at least we'll have the information to make, again, an informed decision.
Okay, but what is it that we're asking the chief, just so that we're all clear?
Well, let's just say that, again, if I'm speaking out of turn, then let me know, but are we charging the right amount? I mean, because if we don't wanna price ourselves out, we wanna be fair, but how do we know that if we just said to another community, hey, you know what, this is really not worth our aggravation anymore, how would we know if they had to go elsewhere, what it would cost them? And how do we know that it would cost them 2 or 3 times as much if they're getting a great deal? Or conversely, wow, maybe if we were to increase it even by 2%, they could go somewhere else and get it cheaper. We learned that from the New Boston police thing, that we wanted to increase the price, and then they bolted. They went to another dispatch center, and we lost revenue. But until you know, it's like, how do you negotiate I mean, when we negotiate contracts, we typically do our homework, and we know what the prevailing price is for labor or from other things. We get all those salary surveys from LGC, and we always want to try to be fair. But yet on this, I just don't know if the price that we're charging is competitive or not. I know that on the New Boston police side, we lost that battle.
And the Ware police side as well.
Ware police, yeah.
Well, I guess the difficulty that I have is there's different ways to look at for the value of something, just like in assessing, there are different ways to value a piece of property. You have on a commercial
Right,
piece
yeah.
of property, you have the income approach, okay, you have the market value approach, okay, for example. And I understand that, and I understand the concepts that are being brought up as a business owner, okay? But we are not a business. We are a government entity. We have a cost of operations. We have surrounding communities that we have relationships with, that we depend on mutual aid, and we have community relationships between the towns. We can provide a service that's no additional, or it's an insignificant additional cost to us where we can get a revenue. We're providing a service to another community. Is it, okay, fine, if we say, you know what, if you went to Concord, you might be paying twice of what you're paying. Is it, what we want to do is to increase our revenue to the point that we're hungry for the revenue, that we're gonna price it to what the market bears, and we're gonna operate it as a business, and try to get other ones to come in. Now we're gonna be in direct competition with, let's say, for example, Concord. I mean, is that what we wanna start doing, is having the chief start dealing with operation of the dispatch center as a business to generate revenue?
I would also say that in these times where businesses and government is trying to streamline operations, I look at the Concord Co-op as a great model. You had every municipality negotiating separate solid waste recycling contracts with the private sector, and for the most part, they were all kind of, writing their own deal. Then the co-op came together and said, okay, if we leverage and do more of a regional type recycling program, we can do it for less price, less hauling, etc. I think that a regional dispatch center can accomplish the same thing. If Goffstown is that regional dispatch center, great. If it's not, then it's not. But I mean, I don't even know if we were to have our dispatch, police and fire, be done by another entity, I can't even tell you how much it would even cost us. I don't know if it'll cost us more. I don't know if it'll cost us less. I don't know what the difference in the service may be, from what we have now to what we could have. I don't know if it would even be worth it. If someone said to me, hey, you could do dispatch if you go to some other entity and it would save the town $200,000. Don't know.
Okay.
I don't know if the service would be so poor that it wouldn't even make up for a $200,000 savings. I don't know if it would be more.
All right, let me ask you this question. We have a dam here in town, and we have transponder system. I assume everybody here is aware of the transponder
No.
systems and how they function. Are those transponder systems, the way they operate and the reaction to that, is that an integral part of our communication system, Chief?
Absolutely.
If we were to be dispatched by another dispatch center, how would it affect the transponders and all the people that are gonna be downstream of that dam if there were a breach of that dam?
It will go through another town, and depending what they have for priorities going on at the time. They may not know what happens in our town if the dam breaks, et cetera.
How would it affect us as far as our emergency management, our communication center, when you invoke emergency management, where we have a headquarters that's at PD, okay, for our emergency management, such as the 2 floods that we had?
Correct.
Okay, if we did not have our dispatch center here, and we depended on somebody else doing our dispatch, how would that affect the community?
We'd be severely limited.
Question then, are we saying we severely limit these people that we provide service for then? I mean, what's the flip of this? In other words,
When you go into a regional dispatch
no,
center,
no, not the same, but we're offering service to to this
We
community
must
here. that we're-
shortchange them because they don't have their own.
So we're saying
right?
that, we're saying we're limiting that service?
no, sir, I'm not.
Okay.
I don't wanna get sidetracked off of the lease at hand, but I do wanna say that our responsibility is to the taxpayers of Goffstown. And I think it's a good thing that we have the ability to offer services so other communities can have cost-effective services for their own citizens. But that's not where our responsibility lies. And I understand that if we didn't have these contracts, we wouldn't reduce personnel. I understand that as well. But everything has a cost. And if I'm a dispatcher and I'm answering calls for other communities, that's time away from other things that I could be doing. So to analyze what the value of that time is, to see if our costs are in line with what the market will bear so that we're competitive, I can't understand why anyone would be opposed to that. To make sure that our leases are protecting the taxpayers, the people that are paying for these services. And that's all I'm looking to do.
Well, we are getting a revenue for it, so we are being compensated.
But if it costs us more to provide that service than what we're getting.
But
for
it doesn't cost us, because if we don't renew the lease, we have no cost savings. There is nothing going down in the budget.
If I could, I think one thing that I learned from the SAU side of it is that they have a formula, and their formula is it's based upon the students at the time, and it's based upon the budgets that Goffstown has. And I guess if you looked at it from that perspective, if we had a formula in here and it was an agreement, it could even be a 5-year agreement for all I care, that we would, that these other communities would pay a percentage of our budget based upon their calls for service, et cetera, or then I think it's more equitable. Because as our budget increases, their cost increases, because and then again, if we have a ton of calls for service and they have a very small amount, they're paying less, in arrears. But this whole notion of just paying the same thing for the last, 3 or 4 years, hey, we'll provide training for a couple $100, it is a little, I have to agree with Steve, it's a little bit inconsequential. But I personally would like to see something that is tied to our budget, so that Ware and New Boston, as our budget goes up, albeit by 2%, 3%, et cetera, then theirs will also go up proportionately for what their calls for service are or for what their activity is. So hypothetically, if Ware Fire represents 5% of our dispatch activity, I don't know what, it could be 2% for all I know.
If their calls for service go down, which in this Francistown
Right.
one you'll see has
Right.
gone down, do we charge less?
Yes. Yes, it would. And basically, you charge X amount, or you do it in arrears. But let's just say that historically it's been, I don't know what our dispatch, let's just say it's 5%, hypothetically, Ware's Fire. It could be less than that. If after the year is done, we would budget for 5%, but it might only be 4% of our total. But at least as our costs go up, their costs go up as well, proportionately to what their use is. That's another approach of going, rather than a flat fee. Because the flat fee, 3 years, it's kind of hard to even explain to a taxpayer that, yes, it's a market, but yet, our costs going up, our health insurance is going up, our fuel to heat the place, gas, everything is going up, but yet, we're not charging any different price. And they're a municipality too.
I understand. See, that's the
Right.
point. The electricity's going up and the heat's going up. But we're gonna pay those regardless of whether we have this lease or not.
But it's a shared agreement, though. I mean, it's almost like we're, I think if, I would, I
All I
personally
can say is
feel
at the
more-
time when the chief, the chief that brought these forward
Yeah.
to that Board of Selectmen back then, thought this was great that the chief was able to provide some revenue to the taxpayers of Goffstown to offset their
It
dispatch center.
probably was at the time,
But it still is, because if we
I know.
don't renew the lease, we're not gonna save a dime.
but it would, at least it'll be pegged to something that would be more, consistent with our increases.
I think
I'm
we're-
sorry,
Oh, sorry. Selectman Pierce.
I just want to bring out that something similar to what Selectman Gross is talking about has already been implemented with the SOAR Commission. The SOAR Commission is responsible for 4% of the O&M of the Manchester sewer plant. So as the Manchester sewer plant has additional operational and maintenance expenses, we show, the Gulfstown sewer payers.
Shares in
Share, shoulders 4% of that cost. But the concept is implemented in other ways.
there is one difference though.
There's no other show in town.
We,
We can't pick up our sewage and go
Yeah.
someplace
Right,
else.
else.
No other show in town.
sure.
I was just gonna say, I think tonight, we're getting into how these contracts should change, where the question really is, are we gonna reconsider our vote from last week or go forward with a one-year contract at the terms already agreed upon by the,
We already have
already
motions
took
for
action.
1 year.
yes, that's already, so we would have to reconsider that if we wanted to go with this 2-year.
Or the original one we had last week was 3 years.
3 years, yes.
And it was a 3-year lease with a 30-day out clause.
Right, that's to both parties, beneficial to either one.
That goes back to what Selectman Gross was saying, it's 5 years of the same price. The 2-year contract we came off of, and the 3 years forward, 5 years of the same price. And we talk about sitting here, and I understand what you say with revenues, but, I understand that all odds are we will probably and most likely shoulder most of the burden, but does it come anywhere close to being fair and equitable is the question that's out there for me.
Well, I don't know, if there've been no increase in 5 years, has there been any increase?
There was an increase with all dispatch leases when we lost New Boston and Ware.
I have a question for the chief. Has there been resistance to trying to do it on a calls for service? Has that ever been discussed with the other towns in terms of pegging it to a percentage, and then as our budget goes up, theirs would also be done,
We have not had that discussion. There are fluctuations in calls for service. When I first took over, we had the numbers from the floods that I looked at. We've seen a lot of them go down.
Right.
A lot of calls for service
Right, but
go in a down.
I guess in some cases, like, I would see this particular contract as, this has been, there would be a baseline, and you're paying X amount to this baseline, and then if it goes over it, then it would be structured as, you'll pay a little bit more for that increased, but no, so if, let's just say hypothetically, it's 1,000 calls are typical.
We're not even close. We're talking
just-
200 calls.
I'm just, 100?
200.
200. So if 200 is normal, then if they have 150 or 175, you're still paying for the baseline, and then if it's between 200 and 225, no adjustment, then 225 to 250 is an escalator. Just like we get escalator clauses all the time in our contracts for DPW, they put things in just in case. So you give, we would give them a little buffer of if they had over that baseline, let's say of 10 or 20%, and we're not gonna charge you any more, but if it goes beyond that, then there'll be a little bit of an escalator. But at least as our costs go up, because I'm thinking, if wages are going up 2%, which we know they did, but historically they were going, wages,
Not for dispatch.
okay, well, I'm just saying historically, if I go back, it's probably more like 3 or 4%, and then on the healthcare side, they have been going up double digit over the last, 5 to 10 years. So, oil, et cetera, has been, going up. So our costs are going up probably 5 to 6% a year. But yet, if we're gonna keep it even modest at a 2%, we're losing. And if it was at least tied to whatever our budget goes up, I mean, we have a self-interest too. We're not gonna go crazy and have our budget go nutty. So, as a municipality, they have some assurance that we wanna keep our costs as tight as possible. So even if it was pegged to a percentage, it wouldn't be a very high, unknown for them.
But there's one other thing here that I think we're losing sight of.
Yeah.
The fact that a constant amount in a lease is much easier for municipality to budget for and go through the budget cycle when you're having budget committees that are looking at saying, well, we don't want an increase this year, so okay, it's the same amount. So by changing it now, they're gonna go through a budget process and they say, oh, well, we have to increase. Because
You can take care of that, because what you can do is you can bill in arrears. So you bill on a baseline, and then if
But look at the amount of work that's gotta go into bill in arrears when you, for 200 phone calls, a flat fee, and you're done. Don't worry about it. It's done. You don't have to spend time doing that. Now you start adding all that time. Who's gonna do that in arrears? The chief at his rate of pay? Or we gonna have Don do it, at finance director do it at that rate of pay? That's insanity. This was 200 calls, you got a flat fee, and that's what it's being based on. And it's the same amount of money every year, unless you increase, they're willing to pay for the training. And as the chief pointed out, we're looking at probably a 10% increase for the training. That training that they're paying for is beneficial to who?
Our dispatch, our town,
Do the Goffstown taxpayers benefit
yes,
from having somebody else pay for the training of our dispatchers?
yes.
I rest my case.
How many are trained?
They're all trained. The newest one is in the middle of training for the fire certification.
When you train all of them, what is the cost for that? Are we saying that full cost is $600?
No, absolutely not.
What is the full cost for that training?
It was split 3 ways between the 600, 612, I think we did 1,800 for training all of them.
1,800, so it's not the full cost of training, okay.
It sounds reasonable if, Mr. Chairman, if I can throw this here now, sounds reasonable if your workload over the course of the whole year is 200 additional calls.
Roughly, don't hold me that, but
Yeah,
it's not over.
Roughly, okay, round. It sounds like it's a fair deal for both parties. We're not being overburdened,
Correct.
and the prices are rather reasonable for the revenue that we're getting for those 200 calls. And it would be your responsibility, Chief, in the course of these 2 years, to come back and say, for whatever reasons, we're finding significant amount of calls in fire.
Absolutely.
We don't want that to happen, but if
And
it
that's
did.
part of the reason I haven't been asking for large increases. In the 2007 and 8, during the floods, the calls were much higher for calls for service. Now, we've seen a drop in those calls for service.
And all things considered, probably residents and businesses are being better, they take better care of their houses and structures, and so you're seeing a decrease.
Steve?
How many calls do we have through fire for Goffstown, roughly? Roughly.
Fire EMS is probably 2,300 calls.
10%?
How many, what was that?
7-8%.
And the police are running about 19,000 a year.
19,000?
Mm-hmm.
So there's a communications burden of 19 plus 2,000, 21,000 calls a year. So,
I mean, in perspective, it's really an insignificant amount.
200 calls on top of 21,000. That's
1%?
1%, ballpark?
Under 1%, yeah.
I think it's,
And you're thinking, what's 1% of our communications budget?
no, I'm actually thinking, no, I'll spit it out. I'm actually thinking that if we were just to make it a round number of $1,000 that we receive from the other community, and we do 200 calls, that's $5 a call. Is that about right?
Where do you, I'm sorry, I don't follow.
Let's say we just take the figure of $1,000. In other words, the contract's $800, but they paid so much.
It's $800 a month.
A month.
I understand, but still, it's in that month, it's $5 a call, is that correct?
No, there's 200 calls a year.
For which we're getting 14, these two communities contribute a revenue of $14,000.
And
Is
that's
that 200 combined for both
No,
communities?
there's about 100, 150 for New Boston.
Go ahead, don't let me have to do my math again.
Getting back to Selectman Capasano's point, do we really want to try to do that analysis here at the
No, no.
meeting, or? It's probably
We'll be
best
here all night
outside of the
doing
meeting,
this.
right.
Well, I guess what it comes down to, 325 calls for a year, approximately, we're getting roughly $14,000 for it. There's very little work that's involved in it. I mean, if you started doing and started calculating the calls for service, last thing I'd wanna do is start getting into an argument with another community that they said, no, you're overcharging us, because our records show that we're 25 calls less, and at because at $5 a call, 25 calls is $125. I wouldn't wanna, it's not worth getting into that argument. It's not worth that level of detail, because that's just the paperwork involved in trying to keep the records is gonna be more than the work that the dispatchers do to provide the work to dispatch the 325 calls over the year.
Yeah, you don't want to create
A
another.
flat rate, it's
created
easy to
enough
budget, and you know
administrative
what? The flat rate, when it comes time for the revenue for our budget, it's the same amount of money, and it might go up 2%. And that was money that the chief, what they paid for the training, that was money that Goffstown taxpayers didn't have to raise and appropriate in our budget to train the dispatchers. It was that much of a savings. I'm sorry,
No, but again, we already voted to offer a contract at the rate suggested by the chief, so we don't need to have a discussion tonight on potential changes to those rates. We have the time to investigate and to gather all the information we need.
So you're suggesting keep the same format as last week, but make it a one-year contract?
That's what we voted on last week.
Last week.
Chief, will that be acceptable to them, or is a 2-year contract what they're looking
They
for?
were looking for 3, but I tried to meet in the middle, but I can go forward and ask them for a 1. I will ask them for a 1-year contract.
Board want to consider a 2-year contract?
I would. The rough math to me is we're getting adequate revenue for their, I don't know, 200 or 150 more, 350 calls. We're getting an adequate revenue.
It's difficult to say that, though. Outside of this meeting, I mean, again, I stepped out to take a call at home, I apologize. I don't know if you discussed our total calls.
Yeah, 325 is approximately.
No, I know that.
Between the two communities.
Right, and then when you add up hours,
21,300, right? For police and fire.
Yeah, it came out about
Okay.
1%.
but I'm just saying fire.
Just fire
Just
is
fire.
2,300. Goffstown Fire is 2,300.
Okay, 2,300, all right. So they're about a little more than, they're about 12-13% of our fire calls.
Yeah, but I think what you really need to do is if we don't have this contract, our dispatchers are still doing 19,000 calls for the police
Correct.
department? those calls are still there, regardless of whether we
I hear
have
you.
this contract or we don't, the dispatchers are making that. So the total volume of calls that Goffstown has between police and fire, when you add this, it comes out to about 1%.
I guess I'm not, I agree with what you're saying, but when you come in and you see a lease, it's X amount of money, there was, to me, what you just said, and just rough math here, it seems like it's okay, but as Selectman Pierce came to that quick conclusion on his little math that he did, but we didn't have that opportunity to even do that math.
Quick question. If I could ask. Just
That's all I'm saying.
Nick? Chief, what do the dispatchers do in between calls?
They each are assigned different tasks. One maintains the business book, updating businesses. The other one maintains the alarm ordinance that we do, billing for alarms, alarm permits, reviewing incoming permits. We have them maintaining 911 and a liaison with them. We have one that runs the mental health and medical registrations. So they're all assigned various tasks throughout.
So then you would agree that when they're answering calls, they're being taken away from other jobs that they could be doing?
They have tasks that fill in when they're not taking calls.
So there is a cost to answering a call. It's time away from other work.
Certainly. but
Which is
the-
what we look at in other departments when we're trying to add duties or.
How much time is involved with the average call?
An average call could be 5-6 minutes by the time they dispatch it and then answer once they get to the
So if
scene.
you took 325 calls times 5 minutes as an average, that's a total amount of time that dispatchers are spending.
Roughly. I mean, you can have the large fires, et cetera.
And if you
but
took that time and you did the calculation with the $14,000, how much money are we making per hour?
You're not gonna ask me to do math, are you?
Why not? I guess the frustration I have is that I've been here for all these years and we've gone through this and I'm comfortable with the lease. So that's my difficulty.
$25 an hour.
Again, I think I can give you in about 45 seconds the math on this thing, and then we can probably, I don't think it takes more than that. If you take a look at our total communication budget, which is what, $650,000 to $700,000, okay? 21,000 calls for service, of which 2,300, you said 21,300 total,
For Goffstown,
Goffstown,
I believe,
right? That's what
19.
Sue gave me.
2,300 for Goffstown.
No,
Oh, right.
21,000.
That, police and fire.
I know
yeah.
that, that's where I'm
Okay,
going.
all right.
Okay?
Plus there's 3
Of that, just hear me out, 2,300 of those are fire calls, okay?
Okay.
Of that, it's about 10%. Do you following me here?
Yeah.
Okay? And then of that, the breakdown is about 12% of that portion are these other communities, the 325. So now, if I take 10% of the fire calls of 700,000 is $70,000. Okay? You hear where I'm going now? Okay, and then you take about 10 to 12% of that, you'd be around $7,000 to $10,000.
Why are you taking a percent of just the fire calls?
right,
And not the total calls?
Right.
yeah.
Because what we just talked about before with the fire chief situation, I was told by you that if we were to shop and we were to go to Concord, it was gonna cost us $100,000. So I'm just curious as to what the market is. That's all. I'm trying to find out what the fire department market is.
That's really all I'm looking for, is
Yeah.
what is the market rate?
Right.
I don't think
And
that's
the
so
market
unreasonable
rate-
to ask.
It's
We
probably
can't do it
in line.
tonight, we can't do it on the back of an
But
envelope.
let me
It's gonna take some
just-
time.
One other thing, as I said before, just like when you get into assessing, you have different ways to reach an assessment. One is in market value. When you take another community like Concord, how is Concord basing, like any business, that's gonna calculate what it costs them to do their operation? What they're charging might be based with a different cost of what they have. But towns and municipalities are not in the business of dispatch to generate money as a business would go in to say, well, I want to get into the communications business, I want to come up with and I got to come up with a model that I'm going to be able to afford and beat every community of what you're paying for. I'm going to make a communication system statewide. You'd have to have a model that did that, and that's the difference. I personally don't think it's unreasonable, and I don't think the 2-year lease is unusable. The amount of time that we spent discussing it right now, we won't have to discuss next year.
That's a good point.
And as you say, Scott, and have you said in the past, we have better things to discuss than a stupid lease.
It's a good lease. How much, what's our total on it? I just wanna know, the yearly total.
14
Both,
what?
both towns, revenue 14,000. Based on the discussion we had this evening.
I've done the math.
We're, my math says we're picking up a revenue of $40 to $45 per call. Based on the amount of time they may spend, it's $25 of their time. So we're coming out ahead here, gang.
I think, based upon my math, I'm in agreement.
We have a motion to reconsider.
I make a motion to look at these new leases which expire in December of 2012? Yeah, motion to enter into these agreements with Town of Ware, New
They still have
Boston.
to be- They still have to go before the Attorney General's office
Yes.
for a review.
Yes.
Need to reconsider.
To reconsider the motion first.
Right.
Reconsider first, yeah.
Let's do a motion to reconsider last
Reconsider.
week's.
Reconsider the motion and present disagreement.
It would just be a motion to reconsider last week's actions. That would be the first motion.
Okay, motion to reconsider last.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Abstaining? 3-2. Motion carries.
Stephen Nick Renee.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Now you have another motion.
Motion to go forward with the lease for the fire dispatch for the Town of Ware and New Boston. Because it's the process of going forward.
2-year.
Yes,
As
and it's
proposed.
as presented to us this evening, which is a 2-year ending in December 12.
I'll second it.
Any discussion?
Yes. I feel pretty comfortable with the numbers that I just got from Sue and the chief. And, I'm not so sure we'll get a whole lot of utility out of spending more time on this thing, like you said. And from what I can see, it seems, from the calls of service and what we're paying, it's 1.5% of the calls for service. And we're getting more than that, I think, a lot more, about 40% more. So I'm okay with it.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
It's 3-2. Motion carries.
So it was a 3-2.
And if I may, again, I voted nay because I still think we need to make informed decisions, and just back of the envelope doesn't give us the information, and that's, I'm okay, the board decided to go forward, and that's fine.
Okay. We have our appointment here. Do you mind if,
You can take a break.
yeah.
So Philip will be okay when we raise the rent in the white building?
Yeah, we'll double it.
You can double it.
Double.
$2.
Triple it.
Oh, I don't know.
Okay. We have an
You
appointment.
do know that that's to be the new home of the Historical Association, right?
Are we gonna get something out of the attic of the Grassmere Town Hall and
Yeah.
move it over to the SAU?
Okay, we have an appointment with Phil Pancos and our Assistant Town Administrator, Derek Horn. Yep. School Board Chairman, Phil Pancos, and Assistant Town Administrator. You are Phil Pancos, right?
I don't go by that, but.
It's Philip.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I'm gonna defer to you.
All right, well, we're gonna need your name for the record.
Philip.
Okay, excuse me.
That's okay.
One L or two L's?
No. Just one.
No
Is that a
L's.
P or an F?
No L's. Fine.
PH?
It depends on who you ask.
Thank you.
Again, we did annual review of the lease with, primarily working with Superintendent Buckley and Ray Labor. on the white building, which is the administration building on School Street. I performed a walkthrough with Mark Tessier, the building inspector, and Ray Labor, the SAU business administrator. And the building was very well maintained. Mark did have a couple of notes for some future work to address some minor electrical items and some openings in the basement that could potentially lead to pests or, getting into the building. The one issue that Mark and I were both concerned was that we believe a dialogue needs to start between the town and the school is the state of the cupola. And because from the ground level, it appears to need painting, and the handrails may be in need of repair. And it also appeared that the metal roof may be pulling away. It was hard to determine from the ground level, so.
You didn't go up there and look?
No.
We were waiting for you to do that.
Oh, I've been up there.
Don't we have a new
I gave-
fire truck that can get us up there?
I gave him a report when I put the weather vane back on.
Chief, we can take the new fire truck up there.
So, when you were last up there, how'd it look?
You can paint it from there, too.
That's right.
And I will note on the first page, this school has done, they did significant work in 2009, doing about approximately 40% of the roof. And they also repointed the chimney, and then in the summer of 2010, they painted the entire inside of the building.
Mhm.
And again, this is just an annual lease review that just kind of start a dialogue and answer any questions,
Yeah.
concerns.
I have a couple of things
Go
that
ahead.
you might have institutional knowledge of. Is the building on the historic registry?
It is not on the
No,
historic
it's-
registry.
but it
It's-
is capable.
Okay.
It is, yeah, it's capable, but it's
If
not.
if it were submitted, it would at least get over that first threshold
Yes.
of being able to be considered. The cupola, in terms of looking at it, and once we have a better idea of what needs to be done, does it make a difference to the town if the more effective use of resources is to simply remove and preserve the cupola and do the roof? Or is there and again, I don't know much about it, or is there a desire to have it remain up there and be
The
repaired
cupola?
regardless of its
The
use?
cupola was,
What are you talking about?
the cupola was done, and the weather vane was redone, rebuilt, repaired. I can give you a copy of the letter from Darrell Lockwood about it, on it when it was presented to the school board.
I remember that.
Yeah.
I was around for that.
Matter of fact, the money was donated from the community, from the Goffstown Police Association and the
We're
Booster
talking
Club.
about minor stuff, other than anything else that an inspection would reveal.
Yeah, I mean, it may just simply need painting, but I think the experience here at Town Hall is once they got up there and saw the state of the handrails, it was more than paint. So until an inspection's done, it's hard to tell.
But you are, I mean, I think, Steve, you said that tongue in cheek, but using the aerial, I mean, that may be something that's needed to get up there. That's a pretty big, right? I mean, how'd you get up
You've been
there?
up there.
How did I get up there?
You can go up there through.
Jutra's sign provided me a lift up there.
Wow.
There we go.
Jutra's
There we
sign
go.
did all the
I'm just-
specialty work.
We used the town hall ladder for town hall because it was a safety issue, there was risk of structural collapse. So we assisted the building super on removing that hazard, that's why we assisted with that.
Yeah, now, there was major work done on it when Ed Neville was the building inspector, and the bell was actually, your chairman was Dr. Craig Heber at the time, was your chairman.
Okay. This is why I was looking to you for institutional
I was not
knowledge.
saying, I was not inferring that we should use our aerial truck for actual work. I was inferring that
For
we would
inspection.
use it for an inspection, since it is safety related. And then if work is needed, then we would use something else.
We do.
Yeah,
Okay.
no,
Appreciate that.
but
Yeah.
my point was, there was major work done to the building back then. Ed Neville was the building inspector at the time. Contractor was out of Manchester, the building was staged. There was quite a bit of work
Yeah.
done, so that outside of that cupola, I'm pretty sure was done, so you might only be talking about 12, maybe 15 years the most.
Then the most important thing to do is get eyes on it and find out what needs to be done other than some superficial work.
Right.
Okay.
Right, and one of the things is that cupola, when you come into town, when you come in from where, down 114, and you come into town, you see that cupola and that weather vane. And that's why many people were very happy about the weather vane. It's the only weather vane like that in the town, in the community. That's still lasting.
Not trying to dispose of it.
Oh, no, I'm just trying to give you a history, because what happens, people aren't aware. People ask that question, well, why don't we just do this, and there's a reason why things are the way they are. Okay?
Other than that, I looked over the list of things that came up as a result of the inspection. Most of them seem fairly nominal and seem like things that are easily identified in terms of fix and/or whether or not lines are energized.
Right.
And we don't need to take, unless there's some desire on the part of the selectmen to do anything with the lease itself, there's no reason the school board sees no reason to make any modifications.
Nick is first.
Well, I was just to go back, obviously, once you get to see these items up on the roof, they appear to be items that, if not taken care of over time, will only get worse and cause more of an extensive or expensive repair. So I'm assuming the school board is committed to making whatever repairs are discovered?
Unless there's something that is prohibitive and
I understand
is
it,
gonna
right.
take something, in terms of budget action.
I'm saying in preventative nature, to prevent any further deterioration.
To the extent that there is any. And hopefully it's paint and nailing down a piece of flashing if that's what needs to be done, figuratively, as well as the interior, because those are the only things that were cited on the roof, piece of flashing and the cupola.
I may follow up.
The rest.
But in other words, if the inspection shows that a portion of the roof is deteriorating, which is what's causing the flashing to be exposed, whatever, I would assume that the proper repairs to correct that would be made.
Subject to any budget limitations or considerations, of course, they're gonna be made. I mean, part of the contract, the lease contract requires that we maintain the building.
And I would anticipate in that, because I understand your point. I mean, if something needed to be done, I mean, I don't
A
anticipate it.
re-roofing, obviously, would be outside of the scope of
Yeah, but I
your
think
budget.
I think the roof was replaced, but there was quite a bit of work that was done on the cupola and as far as the screening and that stuff. But I think what I'm hearing and what I anticipate is if there's something that's beyond the scope of what your budget is capable of, that you would repair it for now and then go through the budget process for next year.
We will.
That's-
And again, to the extent that there are any findings, you'll know what they are.
Exactly.
Thank you.
Scott?
Yeah, my concerns were the roof and more so the electrical. Because it is an old building. When I read that, we still have old knob and tube wiring, and those are the things that, again, I'm not an electrician, but I guess I know enough to know that, you know, converting it over is probably a good thing. So if that could somehow be on the game plan.
Yeah, no, I think being in there, I mean, one thing that to understand is that knob and tube wiring, there really is nothing wrong with knob and tube wiring. The only thing is that many people aren't familiar with it, what it is, where it is, and that's where you run into the issue, but,
Yeah, it looked to me as though there was some question as to whether or not that was even energized.
right, and it may not be, it may not be.
Which changes.
And I'll tell you, I go into many places, when I read the report and said about the twist switch, I mean, I go to many places and those twist switches still function, they still operated, they're all knob and tube, and, you know, there are a lot of buildings that have them. One thing that I have, one question on it that I didn't see in here, but my recollection also is that we're supposed to get a copy of your insurance, an accord certificate.
I think
Again,
that was picked up as,
we do have
Just-
confirmation from LGC that they are current with their insurance, but
Yeah.
they don't provide a certificate like you would see with a third-party vendor,
Okay,
because
but
we're both members.
It's a
of the-
requirement of, my recollection and requirement of the lease is that there was some type of verification that
And we
they-
did verify
Right.
that.
Great, that's fine. That's part of the reason to have this annual lease. Now I brought that up, everybody else heard it here. Whether or not they remember it, I don't know.
And your due diligence.
Is there anything else with this?
There's no right, I guess, no action that needs to be taken.
Right, but I didn't know if there was any other questions or comments anybody had on it. We can move on.
The next item that we reviewed was the John Brown track at Barnard Park. This was a 25-year lease that was enacted in 1985, which resulted from a vote at town meeting, and that lease expired the last day of 2010. Prior to that expiration, Superintendent Buckley and the school board had come before this board at the June 1st, 2009 meeting, and there appeared from reading the minutes that there was a consensus to do a 2-year extension to that lease, but it was never followed through on. So what, the recommended action would be to approve a 2-year agreement running from May 1st, 2010 through June 30th, 2012, and that would line it up with the school district's fiscal year.
Okay, any questions on?
I was at a, I'll segue into, I was at a Parks and Rec meeting. We talked a little bit about the track. It's in pretty rough shape. It's been is it safe to say that it's kind of been band-aided along? But I think I think it's a prudent thing to go ahead with a 2-year extension, simply because I think it will buy some time for both the town and the school to have some discussions about what's the future of this track going to be. Because I think in its current state, it can be band-aided. They don't hold track meets there anymore because it's not suitable for track meets. It's not safe.
Well, it's not the proper size as well.
Yeah, you can't use spikes on it and some other things. And I know the school board has been, discussing about the possibility of, if there was to be a track, to have it behind the high school. So I think from a community perspective, that has to gin out, and I think it's gonna take some time for that. This is not the right economic climate to be talking about investing in a brand-new track, or even, trying to repair. I don't even know if the current track is even in a condition that it even could be repairable or used for a suitable track
I think the
need,
economics
so.
of that are such that if you're gonna make an investment in physical plant, it's probably makes more sense to do a ground up than to try to piece things back together. If it makes sense to the selectmen, I think that Scott's characterization is right. I think sort of the opportunity for doing anything vis-a-vis a track, whether it were at Barnard Park or behind the school, is best case scenario a 3 to 4 year window. And if you're amenable to it, I think it makes sense for the school board to push that date out instead of 2012 to 2014. If you want to revisit it sooner, that's fine. But the school board wouldn't have a problem with that. We have a facilities project that's on the board that would take priority over any project for the track unless there were private funding. I don't think that that's extraordinarily likely right now. But the elementary facilities project, to the extent that the district makes an investment in anything in the foreseeable future, is going to come first before the track. So that if we had the ability to use that through 2014, I think that would make sense, unless you want to revisit it sooner, and then 2 years is fine.
Yeah. Didn't we have a report by somebody that either does, somehow they were involved with the track?
A couple of years ago.
Yeah, a couple of years ago, so.
That it's cracked beyond, it's being band-aided along. I mean, and that it's really, it needs to be completely, ripped up and redone. I mean, there's drainage issues there, there's a whole host of things there, and it would be, in my opinion, I think even Rick Wilhelmi at Parks and Rec would say that it is what it is, that track. And to put any significant money in it from the school or the town side would be throwing money out the window at this point. You need to have more of a medium to long-term plan, and I think we're a few years away from that.
Okay.
And again, no track meets are held there. everything is a away track meet for our school program, so it affects mostly our residents who like to walk around or run around that track. And for that purpose, would we wanna spend literally hundreds of thousands of dollars to get it to where it should be? Not at this point. That's just my take.
So the school's just using it for the field in practice?
And
They-
practice.
and
I mean,
practice.
the field they use it for what?
Use it for
The field is used
football,
for
soccer,
intramural
athletic,
soccer.
soccer, you name
Soccer,
it.
football, et cetera.
And that too has, again, I'm segueing, I guess, to Parks and Rec, but there is some discussion about the infield of the track. There's there's like a practice field there. It's not crowned properly. There's been some discussions about having some volunteer groups go in there and put in some additional loam, crowning it properly, and putting sod. But one of the things that we talked about at our last meeting is that you continually need to resod, reseed, fertilize. It's not one of these things where you put in sod and you're done. No, you're gonna have to go in and anytime you have natural grass, you have to continuously, keep up with it. It's a lot of money every year. It's tens of thousands of dollars,
And you have to have time where you have nothing on it for a
Right,
while.
but on the flip side, and I learned all this at our last meeting, because we have Howard Soboloff as a commissioner, he's an athletic director down in Londonderry. He was telling us that even the artificial surfaces, those things last 10, 15 years. He was telling us that the one at West High School shot, they don't last forever.
It's
Yeah.
brand new. I mean, in
Well, it's
relative terms.
relatively brand,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
they don't last forever either, and you have to go and resurface those as well. And and when you do the math on them, and Howard said he'll bring that to us, he goes, it's not always more bang for the buck to have artificial surface.
The one thing that has become practice, which the district would like to have included, is that under 8 water and septic system, we presently and have had for some time access to water through the pavilion instead of having to lug it over. That would continue to be a useful thing, and we'd be happy to have that be included as part of the lease arrangement, simply that we have access, and how how Parks and Rec chooses to provide that access is up to them. If they want to provide a key to the athletic director and his designee, that'd be fine. But that's in lieu of having to cart water over for the students. And it's something we've been doing, I think, for the last year.
Seems like
That seems reasonable.
Mr. Chairman, do we want to wait for official action? Because you don't have that on the 4-year lease extension.
Right.
Should we wait for official vote from the school board to reconsider that from 2 to 4? Because personally, I think there's no sense coming back in 2 more years.
I thought you wanted to make it a yearly lease.
On this one, I've done the cost benefit. You're unbelievable.
If I may, Mr. Chair, if we do modify this and make it 4 years, I presume you're gonna take it back to your board.
Actually, why don't we do it this way? And I think Scott's idea is on the mark. Why doesn't the school board present a proposal to the selectmen that incorporates those 2 changes? And that way you'll have a document in front of you.
Okay, and the other change with the water, is that something you're gonna be talking to the commissioners about, or Rick, or?
Currently, Rick is allowing access to the building. I can't tell you exactly how it's happening.
So what I meant is you're gonna address that with Rick or the commissioners? And then
Yes.
put something,
Yes.
whatever you guys come up with?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, that being said, in my last meeting with Parks and Rec, the director was very complimentary of the school district sharing of resources, using the tractor, doing different things, and there is a very good working, from what Rick said, a very good working relationship between Parks and Rec Department and the town, so I can't imagine there would be any issues there.
So would it be helpful for you, Phil, if Derek emailed you this one to work off of?
Yes, it would.
Okay.
We may have one already, but I'll do.
Good.
Okay. So we're all set with this lease?
Should we double it, you think, to 2, or?
That's up to you.
I'd like to, just for this sake.
Listen,
You
would
wanna
do
run through the math?
Well, I was gonna say, would you do the math? Tell me what the daily cost is?
And then the last item before you is the GTV studio at the Goffstown High School. Again, this is a 2-year lease that was, the agreement was made in June of 2009 and runs through June 17th of 2000, I'm sorry, it runs through June 30th of 2011. Talking with Dick Gagnon, he did not have any comments relative to the annual review. He's going to bring the matter before the cable committee to see if they have any comments relative to extending or renewing that lease in June. But, Mr. Pancos can talk more to this, but I believe the SAU was favorable about renewing this lease.
Yeah, that'd be fine, pending any comments from the GTV
Well, they'd be
subcommittee.
new to us too, so.
Yeah. I would propose that because we went through an exhaustive period in which we came up with an agreement that I think captures absolutely everything that you could imagine capturing, that we extend the lease beyond June of 2011 through June of 2016.
Okay, so that'll be a 4-year lease also?
Be a 5-year lease.
And how much is this lease?
5-year, right.
Dollar.
I think this is providing access to the school as well as training.
It is a quid pro quo.
Is there an out on that one?
There is,
On our part?
there is no specific
In
out on
either?
the town's part. There is an out clause on the school district that they notify the town at least a budget cycle prior to the termination date.
Okay, I say that only because from what I've had some conversations with Dick, and again, he's not the cable access committee, but, they have talked for the last couple of years about another studio location, and I wouldn't want to jeopardize any of those. So as long as we have the opportunity to say, hey, you know what? Again, I don't know what it would be, but I don't want to tie our hands for 4 or 5 years.
I promise to find a use for that space if it becomes
Okay,
available.
all right.
I think you
Well-
already have during the day.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, I just think though that, if we wanted to approach you, that you would appreciate probably a budget cycle also.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so,
Well, there's no money here.
well, I know, but still.
But if we lost the space, there would be a budgetary impact for us to
For us.
relocate.
Right.
But there's no impact for them.
No.
Yeah, but they might need some money in the budget to do some work to that space rather than just boarding it.
If there were gonna be a change.
That's what I
In
meant.
its use and
Yeah.
function.
I was just gonna ask if we could defer any action on this until we've had the
Other one.
committee's comments,
Right.
because they're meeting on May 9th, the cable
I
committee.
will, and we have a representative on that committee. I'll look for those comments, and then we'll come back with a proposal in the same way we're gonna do with the Barnard lease.
All right, so those two will come back?
Yeah.
Probably
Does that make
together?
sense?
Yeah, okay.
Yeah,
Thank you.
no action was being requested tonight on this one, it was just
Scott?
the annual review.
Yeah, I'm just, I do have some questions, and I don't think, Philip, you have the answers, but maybe if you could find out the answers, probably more from your facilities director. But I do visit the schools, I have 2 kids at 2 different schools, and I see things like guardrails that are messed up, potholes, and things that our DPW typically would do if it was a town-type situation. And I'm curious to know, like, how those things get addressed. So if there are potholes, which there are in the back of Goffstown High School, if there are drainage issues at Mountain View Middle School, which there are these the types of things that the school district subcontracts with an independent agency to do that? Or do they go to DPW and have them, I guess where I'm driving at is that, for the most part, I think if they have the time, I believe our DPW can do it less expensively, and that's lesser cost for us as taxpayers.
Just out of curiosity, and you don't necessarily need to answer this now. Would you propose that, if that made economic sense, that there would be a transaction that occurred? Which is fine, because it'll.
Yeah, I'm throwing
I
this out.
thought you were just asking a question of how they
Yes,
deal with that.
but my question goes, I mean, if
I'm going further. I'm
hypothetically,
going down the
I
road.
understand
if
that, but-
hypothetically, we subcontracted out with a paving company to do some of these things, when our own personnel, as you know, I mean, we just did some work on Mast Road, and we did filled some potholes, et cetera, if we did that for X price, why do I wanna farm that out for $500 when we can, we're already doing other potholes? And is there a way to achieve the same result? Because it's coming out of our pockets, because it's a school district expense. The other thing is that when you look at things like resurfacing a parking lot, we do go in on oil bids through the school because you use more oil than we do. There's an opportunity there for you to go in on our paving bid if we know that you're gonna be resurfacing a driveway, and I can tell you flat out is that you have an issue with a drain in the parking lot of Mountain View, for an example. Is that, if you're gonna farm that out to an independent company, that may cost you a heck of a lot more money than if you leverage the resources of DPW. So, and are there other things that, Steve, I don't know why, do you think I'm off track, or?
No, I just thought DPW was doing it to begin with.
No,
I don't know the answer to that, I was
think they
surprised.
do.
I don't know the answer.
I don't think they do.
No, even when we did over our parking lot, we had to budget.
Right.
Okay, I just,
DPW did it, but we had to budget
Yeah.
an admin to have our
Yeah,
parking lot.
because you have another issue here with the paving, because it's a timing, and that's what happens.
Right.
You have a timing issue. You're gonna have certain things done and paved.
Right.
And it's very difficult to say, well, it's gonna be, this is gonna be the date that they're coming.
The point that I guess, having had the privilege of serving on both boards, we operate in silos, and we do line striping, as an example, in town. They do line striping for their parking lots every year for the most part. They may, well, you have, budget.
Some parking lots every year.
My
that
point
may be
being
the
is I
case.
can rattle off probably 4 or 5 examples of things where you're going out to bid and we're going out to bid separately. Yours is a small project, ours is a bigger one. You get a much better price if you were in on ours, just like we get a better price on
I agree.
fuel oil because we're in theirs. If we went out on ours, we may not get a good a deal. Paper is another prime example, so.
They buy gasoline from us.
Right, so there is that type of relationship, and then there's other things where, we could have, it could be, better. I'll give you one more. With solid waste is a good example. I mean, there are literally dozens upon dozens of barrels behind Goffstown High School or the middle school, et cetera. Again, we've talked about the whole thing of having a bigger receptacle or compactors and some different things. These are things where the town and the school should have a meeting in the future and talk about them, because it's not so much the fact that, the one-armed bandit picks them up, it's all the time and effort, and would it be cheaper for us to do it that way? Because whatever they do less expensively, or we can do less expensively by working together, the better off we all are. The town uses, the Parks and Rec uses the tractor that is owned by the high school to do a lot of maintenance work. That's all I'm saying. So it should work both ways, and I think it does, but it could be better.
Yeah,
It does.
I think, and forgive me, so I'm gonna toss you and Ray under the bus right now. It seems to me that probably the greatest opportunity to identify as many areas as possible, and some of them aren't gonna be captured. Like the tractor use would not be captured necessarily by this dialogue, but is to have the people who have the greatest exposure to the things that are going out for bid, to sit down and have that dialogue, and at least to begin to build a framework for where those opportunities exist.
Yeah, and this is not the first time we've had this. We've had it in the past. We even explored buying paper together.
We do buy.
We do buy
Yeah,
paper.
I'm saying, years and years ago.
Depending on the bid, yeah.
Yeah.
Right, we explored a lot of other things.
Propane,
yeah.
heating oil.
But even before, I'm talking 18 years ago, we looked at this. And probably wasn't the first time 18 years ago, well, I don't know.
I have one more before he leaves.
You
School
do?
resource officer. You eliminated that, I don't wanna put you on the spot here, but you eliminated that from your budget.
Yep.
We have not had an opportunity to talk to our police chief about this.
Okay.
But we, I believe we as a board wanted it in the budget, the school budget, so that we as a community could capture, roughly 30% of the cost for that through the surrounding communities. This board, just so you know, has not had a discussion with the chief as to, will we continue to do it or won't we? I mean, that's something that we probably should have a discussion on, but any comments from obviously you made that cut. Is that an indication that of the grand scale of things at Goffstown High School and in the district, that was one of those things that was more low-hanging fruit, or
Not necessarily low-hanging fruit, but
lower priority?
as you look at priorities,
Right.
and having to make decisions in real time, there were two pieces. There were getting to the default and then dealing with the governor's budget proposal. That's probably the one that is gonna cause the fewest problems. It's my recollection that the officer came out of the budget in the default portion. It's not something that can't get looked at again and examined again, but it really was simply a priority decision.
All right.
And it shouldn't necessarily represent a lack of desire to have the skills and the services that position brings to the district. But when you look across the landscape and make decisions about where it makes the most sense in terms of the district's priorities.
Okay, so I just want to get clarified. The school district knows that there's a potential that in the next academic year, there may not be an SRO there. They understand that.
We recognize that's
Okay.
a possibility.
Okay.
It's not a desirable.
Right.
But,
Okay.
yeah.
Any other questions? Comments?
One more.
One more?
CIP, our department heads are doing CIP now,
Okay.
and so are you, I would assume, the school. Are there any, you mentioned the elementary school study I mean, I'm sure we'll hear about it through CIP, but is there anything that we need to be aware of, because we try to not compete with one of your projects if possible?
My guess is, we've got to go back out to bid to the firms that submitted proposals for the work on the project. In fact, that's more expensive than we anticipated. We believe that there would be even greater competition. The prices that we got didn't demonstrate that they were being really competitive. So my guess is that once we get through that phase, that's gonna be where most of our energies and attention are devoted, because even that probably has a 2-3 year tail on it.
Okay.
So I don't see anything else
Nothing major capital-wise?
Not that I can think of. If something comes up, when I think to be prepared to answer that question, I'll let you know, and I'll do it when we come back with the contracts.
Okay. That's it?
One more.
I knew you were gonna do this.
I'm just conveying Parks and Rec, the tennis courts that we have, both Roy worse than Barnard, but they're not in the greatest of shape, and I do know that you, as a school district, use the Barnard tennis court, so we're probably, as a Board of Selectmen, are gonna see things from Parks and Rec about the resurfacing and the repair of those tennis courts, so whatever that is. I know that you use those facilities. That was it. Now,
You sure?
positive. There's a lot of discussion at Parks and Rec this year.
Okay.
This last meeting.
Good thing we have you there.
Better than Steve, that's for sure. It's okay.
Yeah, I know, huh? Okay, so, there's 2 leases that you're gonna be coming back to us with.
Right.
Okay, with, on those issues that we discussed, just so that, that we're all clear,
Yeah.
all on the same page?
Yeah.
Okay, and that'll be about a month?
Yes, because GTV will be meeting on May
Right.
9th, so I think, and
Okay.
the school board meets next Monday and then the third Monday, so it would be appropriate near the end of May to bring it back.
Okay, good. Thank you very much, Phil.
Thank
Yep.
you.
Thank you, Derek. You can go home now? Okay. Just checking.
Scott, any other questions?
No,
before we go?
I'll call you
sure?
later.
I know, huh? All right, thank you,
Take
Phil.
advantage of the lull and.
Okay,
Thanks.
thank you, good night. Before we get back to the police chief, does the board wanna take a break, or not? Up to the board.
I'm good. I'm good, we can go. Ladies, you wanted a break?
Sorry.
Yeah,
5
you wanted, yeah, go on a break. We usually take a break this time, right?
Yeah, well, that's why, before we got into this, I didn't know how long we were gonna be, that's why.
Yeah.
Okay. We will take a 10-minute break till 8 o'clock. And then we'll come back.
you ask for a copy?
You can tell because this
I
is.
believe
Okay,
the
we're
other-
back from our break, it's 8 o'clock, and we'll continue with meeting, we're back with the chief, and we're on, I guess it's the prosecutorial lease?
Correct, with Francistown.
Right.
It's the same amount as it has been. In 2008, we had 87 total cases with Francistown. 2009, there was only 67, and 2010, there was 76. So we're still down roughly 11 cases from 2008 level that we were at.
And they haven't asked for a reduction, right?
They have not. It's a one-year agreement or contract, and it too will expire in December 31st, 2011.
Nick?
Just a question, I'm just looking back in our minutes, on December 13th of 2010, we voted to
Absolutely.
approve the contract. What happened?
That was the previous one, 2010. You get these and you send them to one board, and they come back from another board, and you send them to the AG's office, and they got lost in the shuffle
So we voted on December 13th
for the
to,
2010.
which expired
December.
17 days later?
Correct.
Being proactive now.
Okay.
I'm gonna ask the next question, how have they been handling it between now and then?
They paid the bill.
They just, okay,
Yeah.
I mean, it just doesn't matter, okay.
Just one other thing, on page 1, 2.0 withdrawal from contract.
Correct.
If we decide to withdraw, we give notice to the chairman of the Board of Selectmen.
Yes.
Could we change that, so if they decide to withdraw, our chairman gets the same notification versus the chief of police?
Sure.
That's the only thing.
Have a motion to, want a motion?
Sure.
Motion to proceed with the prosecutorial lease with the town of Francistown.
Is there a second?
Yes.
Is there any discussion? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstaining? 5-0. The next one is the B and M lease.
I've been in contact with the people from B&M. There's a, actually, it's Pan Am Railways now. And there's a new person in charge. We've come to an agreement for 3 years, or actually 2.5, I believe it is, with a 2% increase each year. However, the last payment is only 6 months, so that'd be cut in half. So it's a 3-year lease agreement for the antenna up on the mountain.
Questions?
Yeah, just, I guess I'm confused on that. I think I'm just confused, but on 6 and 7, it's a 2.5-year lease, so it starts this July, right?
Correct.
And then it ends on July 30,
December.
I'm sorry, December 31st of 2013, so how does it become only a half a payment, and is it because they're paying a full year for, I don't get it.
Right, it's gonna be July to July, July to July, and then July to December.
Okay, gotcha. All right, that's what I just didn't get. Motion to proceed with the B and M lease.
Is there a second?
Yes, seconded.
Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, opposed, abstaining, it's 5-0. And the next lease is,
Between the town and DOT, New Hampshire DOT.
right,
This has come before the board previously. They have sent it up to their lawyers for the state. They came back with some suggestion changes. We complied with some of them, and some we did not. Again, to protect the town's interest. I had a conversation Friday afternoon, I believe it was 4:30. I guess the bad word in the state right now is renew. You cannot put renew in any contract with the state. So they asked for that to be removed, and that was taken out from section 8, and now we have timely notice of intent. and I'm not sure you have that update.
Say that, so renew has been replaced
They
with...
do not want renew in any contract, so now it's timely notice of intent. A desire to re-enter into a contract for subsequent years must be completed in writing prior to November 1st of the year preceding the years in which the contract will go into effect. And that's pretty similar language that's been in throughout. The person I've been in contact with, Dave Chase up there, is comfortable with that language. He would present it to Governor and Council in that format.
Okay, any questions on this lease?
Motion to proceed with the DOT lease as drafted.
Is there a second?
A second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Unanimous. And we have the final one? Oh, that's the end of the leases.
That's the end of the leases.
That's an ordinance.
Now we're talking about a draft ordinance for Glen Lake.
Yes.
You had a revised one
Yep.
today in your mail basket, which incorporates Attorney Drescher's
Correct.
suggestions.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Can we put this off for another week? And I say that simply because we got this pretty late. I didn't even get a chance to read, and there's a lot
Yeah.
here to read.
No, there is.
Okay.
There is.
I mean, if there's anything that maybe the chief wants to talk to us about, to say, hey, focus in on some of these things, this is problematic, I'm good here.
Yeah.
I don't have any problem with that, but
Well,
not taking any action on it.
I don't think that we necessarily had to take any action. I mean, it's just that it's here. I understand that we did get the revised one, you know, with the changes, but if there's any discussion, anybody has any questions, or the chief has, I think we should just take advantage of the time that we have here for a few minutes. Nick?
Well, I just had a comment, if I could, on one of the sections on, particularly C, no trespassing.
On C? Well, wait a minute. Are you at the new one?
No, I think they're the same, pretty much the same in both.
Just the word,
Well, one is C, one is Roman numeral 5.
Oh, okay,
They're both-
okay.
they're
Yeah,
both
They're
the
both
same.
no trespassing.
right, okay.
And I guess the only thing I'd like the board to consider is, we say no trespassing between the hours of 10 PM and 5 AM. Would it be more prudent to say from dark until 5 AM, maybe with the exception of
Dusk to dawn or something, or-
retrieving a boat? Because I don't understand why we would
fishing.
allow.
It
People
was
fish,
fishing.
they fish at night?
Right.
Well, I understand that, and so we would limit it to dark, but I think it alleviates some of the issues we have there. If people are not allowed in the beach area after dark, we avoid potential vandalism, we avoid potential drinking,
Not being a fisherman, I don't know what hours people fish, but I remember that being the discussion last time we looked at this ordinance.
but we could still allow people to retrieve their boats if they're out on the water after dark, but I'm just thinking, I think it would be easier for us to just say from dusk till 5 AM versus 10 PM.
Well, I understand what you're saying but when you don't, one of the other discussions that we had also with this at one point in time, when you're not definitive, when you say from dusk till dawn, what are you using for that time frame as dusk? I mean,
The need for a flashlight?
Right, darkness.
well, maybe I eat a lot of carrots and I don't need a flashlight as soon as you do.
It will be hard for us to enforce dusk. Your headlights are required a half hour on after sunset. That's very definitive. Sunset is at 6:52, and a half hour after that, your headlights have to be on. It's very definitive as far as when. Dusk, that's a relative term.
Sunset, sunrise?
How about from dark? I mean, we're not the only community that, I've seen signs where you're not allowed in a park or when it's dark. And maybe,
Dark
so,
will be fine. Dusk is a.
I understand, and maybe the definition and how we word it needs to be worked out, but I guess the concept that I'm putting forward is that once the sun is gone and you need a flashlight to see, that there's really no reason to be on the beach area. And it alleviates our officers from having that added burden of people calling saying, I hear people on the beach, or people are drinking, or maybe vandalism we discover the next day People aren't allowed there when it's dark. It removes-
I guess though, one question though that I have and that raises with me, if I'm going ice fishing, okay? And I'm going to go onto the lake through this area, and I'm gonna have my car parked up in the parking area. Is my car allowed to be parked after dark? And how do I get to where I have my tip-ups out on the ice? How do I get back and forth? I mean, are we leaving it totally up to the discretion of the officers? I mean, how do we deal with that? There are a lot of people that ice fish there.
Then maybe we just have the limitations on the time from dark during the same period of the parking restriction.
But then again, if they're ice fishing,
I don't
they're
think
not
we-
on the beach.
Yeah, we
Yeah, but
probably.
they
They're
have-
not on the beach.
But they have to access
Right, I understand,
through
and-
that.
but the reality is we probably won't have people in the dead of winter congregating at Glen Lake Beach. So we could allow a broader use of that. So for what you're saying, that maybe just from dark to 5 AM is only during the period when we have our parking restriction, the summertime, versus your all year long.
Chief?
If I may, we're experienced in the past, the vast majority of our problems are during the daylight time. Very few encounters do we have there at night. And I think we looked at one point, a 6-month period, we had people parking, if you will, in the boat ramp area, or excuse me, in the boat trailer parking area. Very few contacts with anyone on the beach area at night. Been doing this now for a while. I want to say the last 20 years, it's been 9 or 10 o'clock at night, and we have relatively few encounters on the beach itself. Most of our litter and damage is happening during the daytime.
My only, again, food for thought for next week is Attorney Drescher recommended a deletion of the waiver provision, and in his letter, he commented that it could be problematic if we did. My concern was for the waiver was that there are some circumstances where you're having an event where you would want to have, say, a waiver or
Exclusion.
a solution to
Or
do
exclusion, maybe,
exclusion,
would fit.
right? And I think that in his recommendation, he talked about something about going through the Board of Selectmen for a permit. I think that would be a reasonable thing to do. And I say that because if Glen Lake School needs parking and it's not during a peak season and people want to park in the boat ramp, hypothetically, you can't do it because it only is for boats and trailers. But the ability would be to come before us to get a permit signed off by the board and the police chief, and they're good for that particular day. Let's just say that there was a function where somebody wanted to use the beach and they wanted to park regular cars, you could never do it. And I think that, I understand what the attorney said, but by the same token, if there is an ability to have an exception, it can't hurt. I don't like these these clear and fast rules, because we had that problem once before, and I don't know, that's my only critique of what the attorney stated.
He said you could have
You can do it.
exclusions, you can't have waivers.
Right.
Just a comment here too.
Yeah, go ahead.
Because we're starting to fight the clock a little bit here, getting this
Yeah.
posted. I mean, it's gonna take time. We're gonna have a new sign and
like a-
tape made, is that correct?
I would imagine.
We should.
6-week process, we need to
But let's-
publish.
That's- you follow
let's
where I'm
do
at, you
that.
follow
Why
where I'm at.
can't-
Hearing.
Why can't we can still do that even though we don't take any action
Right,
tonight? so
you
we
can say
still-
go forward and post,
Yes,
publish a public hearing
Right,
Okay, that
in
you.
2 weeks.
Thank you.
right.
And you can have 2 weeks to work out the details
Yeah.
of what you want to present
Let's
at
do
that
that.
time. You
Yeah,
have
'cause
a
we wanna
good
get this thing
basis
going.
here.
6 weeks would be the whole process before we could place the signs, what we're saying. So that would put,
We gotta do it now. We gotta
We
post
gotta go
now
now.
and
Yeah.
start the process.
Do you have any comments, Chief?
Other than the last thing was that the school board and the town would both sign off on this ordinance because of the use of the school property.
I have
Restrictions
just
of-
one question, though, on the public hearing process on this. is the public hearing held by the Board of Selectmen, is it exclusive of the school board, or does the school board, is there any
School board
requirement?
should do their own,
public, yeah.
they can't have,
Their own.
ordinances.
Ordinance,
They
right.
cannot
No,
make an
I
ordinance. They
understand,
Make
but-
regulations, and whatever process they use to regulate any of their
It'll
school
be a- it would
facilities.
be a
I'm just
policy.
asking the question, I'm asking the question, so we don't go through this, where we have the public hearings, but something wasn't done by the school board, so it's not enforceable.
Yeah, I believe what we should do is get a copy of this over to Stacy Buckley, Superintendent of Schools, letting her know that the board will take care of the public hearings. However, the school board will most likely have to adopt a policy with regard to parking at Glen Lake.
Right.
And when they do that, they typically have, similar to what we do, we call it a first read and then a second read before they adopt a policy. So in that respect, you would be looking at, let's say that they did their first read at the first meeting of the month, then they would then they wait a certain period of time, and then they do their second read, and then they adopt. So you're talking about the same 6-week period that they would do the same process. So it's imperative that we get
I will
this to
talk to
them
her tomorrow.
as quickly as possible.
She's on vacation
Yeah,
this week.
That's right.
Okay.
but at least maybe get it to Philip
I'll get-
Pancoast so
I'll
that
get
he
it.
knows, and
Yeah.
put it on the agenda.
Okay. Anything else on this topic? Seeing none? I thank you very much, Chief.
Thank you.
Are we going anywhere with, I'm sorry, were we going anywhere with 5? I didn't know where we stood with that. That's gonna be less.
No, I just brought that up for
Okay,
the
all right.
discussion. We're gonna discuss this at a later time, I'm sure.
Mr. Chair, do we have any non-public with the police chief? Do we know? Any non-public?
No,
No, okay.
fire chief.
Fire chief only, okay. Do we wanna, get him out of here now?
Yeah, we can. We can do the non-public for, with Chief O'Brien.
One point before we, so the next step is you're going to announce the 2 public hearing dates.
I will publish it in the newspaper and put it on the
Right.
website.
Thank you. Okay. So we'll need a motion to go in non-public. I believe it's going to be RSA 91-A:3 to E? Is it E?
E.
No,
A?
A.
Okay, RSA 91-A:3
So moved.
to A. Is there a second?
Yes.
Discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Just quick, and then we're coming back
To public session.
to public session.
Right, so, all in favor?
Yes?
Roll
Yes.
call?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, we're going to go into, we're in non-public session, public session, and the next item of business is gonna be the town administrator's report.
Thank you. Your weekly meeting schedule is in your packet. I won't go through each one. Consensus folder tonight is AP warrants, employee status reports, Grassmere Town Hall restoration, project for the electrical piece, task 2 of the agreement, a get well card for an employee, NPDES Phase 2 annual report for signature by the chairman, an event permit for the Bike the Rail Trail Day on May 21st. Also, the motorcycle event permit that was issued for this past weekend, because of the weather, it wasn't held, and so they'd like to do it next weekend, and all the department heads have said there's no conflict with next weekend. So they just like to move that date till Saturday. And a thank you for your service letter was sent, or is in there for Kelly Funrid.
Okay, so we'll need a motion to accept the consensus folder.
Motion to accept the consensus folder.
Second. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, it's unanimous.
Thank you. Assessor recommendations for 2010 tax year abatement that's recommended is map 9, lot 8713. A denial of 2010 tax year abatement on map 8, lot 521. A land use change tax lien release recommended for map 6, lot 80. Current use application is recommended for map 4, lot 64, map 32, lot 25B. Veterans tax credits are recommended for map 9, lot 1313, and map 11, lot 14. Tentative timber cut is recommended, map 1, lot 38, map 6, lot 54, map 9, lot 60. One of those is Blackbriar, by the way, and I don't think there's a signed plan yet, but I'm told by the assessor that we can't withhold intents to cut. But
No, we can't.
he's, the developer's been made aware of this. And a report of timber cart on map 6, lot 54.
Just a quick question. I'm just looking through the map 6, lot 54, is it common, I noticed there was a wetland map that accompanied the request, which was, it listed Ralston Purina. I mean, that's how far back it was dated, yet I know there are current wetland maps that have been done on that property. Is it common for them to submit such dated?
Did the logger submit that, or?
Property
Yeah,
owner.
probably one of the, I would assume the logger, or that he probably would have gotten
Would have been the
from
property owner, too.
I'm not sure, because all the intents go also to conservation. They're
Conservation.
aware of all of these, so.
which I think is on their agenda for this Wednesday night.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Hmm.
I was just
I don't
curious
know.
to see, such a dated
Yeah,
map when there's a
more current one.
much more current
Well, this
one.
is a report, this is not an intent.
This is a report of a timber cut, yeah.
Right, this is a report.
And the intent was there as well, up above.
Yeah.
Map 6, lot 54.
Well,
Two.
wait a minute, isn't the report after the timber cut?
Yep.
So they cut the timber and the intent
Yep.
hasn't been approved yet.
Common.
Yeah, I know, how long have we had the intent to cut?
I'd have to look at your signature
Yeah,
folder.
we'd have to look, okay, because I think we have to respond, I think it's 45 days.
Right.
Once that's submitted to the town, we have 45 days to act on it, otherwise they go forward.
But they've already gone forward.
Yeah, but it
Yeah,
depends on how
but
long.
that's why he's asking how old is the intent?
Yeah, we may have
Was
had
it
it.
45 days old?
It could be 60 days old, and they've already done the cut.
Or it could be a week and they did it anyway.
We just pull those two out maybe
We can, but there's no,
there's no action that we can take?
Unless you want to remove well, what would be the purpose of, what would be the advantage of removing the report of the timber cut?
Right, none.
no.
And if you don't take action on it, it's nothing you can do anyway. I mean, we really don't have any ability to deny these.
Well, what is our action on this, to approve it?
It's just accepting the,
It was
Assessors'
actually, would it be
recommendations.
after, an after-the-fact cut? But we don't know, we have to go look and see.
right. I'm not sure why they come to us anyway, because I'm not sure you can.
Motion to
Correct.
accept the assessor's
No, we can't deny
recommendations.
them. Okay, there's been a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstaining? It's unanimous.
Also, you have appointment papers in your signature folder for Don Boer as town treasurer.
So moved.
Second?
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
It's unanimous.
Thank you. Medville Executive Board is available to meet with the board in a work session at their clubhouse at 157 Donald Drive on any of the 4 dates listed here, 4/27, 4/28, 5/3, or 5/4 at 6 PM. What's best for the board?
That's this Wednesday?
Yes,
I have a meeting.
okay.
And I have a meeting on Thursday at 7.
May 4th is the best for me.
What day is that?
That's
I
a
don't know.
Wednesday of next week.
That would probably be okay with me.
Okay. About me.
So May 4th, 6 PM.
Okay.
I will get back to him.
Steve is
One
the only
thing,
who doesn't.
Since I'm in Oriole, I figured I haven't done that, it's gonna pop in my calendar, but.
if we're gonna have this discussion,
Well,
it'll be May, should we let them know what we're looking to talk about so they're prepared?
I told them that before you took any action on their request, that you wanted to see what their long-range plan was on their financial plan for the park.
Now, were we going to take a look at the site for the approval of the park to see how it was worded for manufactured housing?
The original site plan approval.
Yeah.
The original site plan approval you want to see.
Yeah.
Right, let's see what it is, because if, without looking at it, we can't say for sure that you can't put anything else besides manufactured housing.
Yeah, I don't know what their mortgage documents say.
I have no
also.
we have no idea, so.
But I think that's a good point, that I think we're gonna want to not see, because it's really not our purview to know what their financials are, but in order to have a productive conversation, I think they're gonna need to be knowledgeable about some of their finances to at least talk to us about that. So they're prepared for that. So if we ask them a question, they can certainly decline to say that's none of your business. But by the same token, it may be helpful if we're trying to help each other out, that we would know, what are some of the issues that are there. And I say that in terms of, how many units do you have? What's the average age of the units? What's the average age of some of your infrastructure? What are your, what rent are you charging, or what's your monthly rent? What are your liabilities? Those types of things, because that will give us an indication as to what's their financial health, and
I also believe that they're, as a nonprofit,
they probably have to file anyway.
they have filings that they have
Yeah.
to do, financial
Right.
statements that are open to the public.
Right, because I think their attorney is over maintained.
Right, so anything that they can give us in that respect would be good.
Steve?
Just a question, wouldn't this be a public meeting? Why wouldn't we have it
It
here?
will.
It is public.
I know, but why wouldn't we have it here then? Just a question.
The board had,
We talked about that,
Having
about
it there.
having it there, but we could have it here.
Oh, no,
It's not like
I'm
it's-
not, I'm just.
Yeah, no, it's just that it was easier for them.
And your point is that for other people to hear
Here and seeing
the
televised.
conversation?
Yeah, I mean, if you don't want it, that's fine, I'm just throwing it out there, and for the most part, we've been going through a process saying televise these pieces, but if you, I mean,
It's a good point. It's a good point.
it's up to you, I mean, I'm not strong one way or the other, but I'm
That would
just
be my
surprised.
preference, is to have it here.
I mean,
So there is a-
Well, the only, they might be more inclined to give up some of the information there than they are here. With
That's-
financial
But then,
information. it's
it
about-
should never be, I mean, that's,
I mean-
it's a public
I'm,
meeting.
no, I'm just saying, it's a possibility.
Because that information would be recorded in the minutes.
I understand.
I'm gonna,
thinking of their position though, they're trying to sell places down there. How public do they wanna be with information when they're trying to sell places?
is this something that would be adverse to someone's reputation there because of that? Or to their reputation as a cooperative?
I don't know if the cooperative has a, I don't know if this.
Well, it might also come
statute-
under, I'm sorry.
No, I'm sorry.
It might
As-
also come under, land negotiations.
You understand, I mean, I'm hearing both sides of it. Yes, it's public, it's a transparency piece, but if there are some things that in order to talk to us about, that they then bring up potential issues that could jeopardize or
hurt
hurt them, then that's something that could damage their reputation or their ability to sell homes, et
That's what I'm
cetera,
getting
and that
at.
could be problematic. But then again, it could still be here, it would just be a non-public session, because could effectively,
It just seems to me that it's easy, that considering, all things considered, I think under this circumstance, I think it's a little bit prudent for us to accommodate them a little bit. Mike?
Let me get an answer to the question on the non-public, because I think when their executive board discusses their financials, they go into executive session.
They would not want it public to say that the viability of their organization from a financial
Correct.
standpoint.
Right.
Whether it's 1 year, 2 years, or 20 years, yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry, Nick?
I would limit our conversations then to publicly available financial information. I think they have the choice of whether or not to request this board provide financial assistance, grants, aid in whatever, and if they choose to do that, then I think that conversation needs to be public. I'm not comfortable with having a non-public conversation with any entity and then deciding to make decisions to
Yeah.
forgive liens or.
And they didn't ask for non-public.
Oh, I understand that,
But
but
I
what
don't
I'm saying
think
is-
we have even had that discussion, whether it's public or non-public.
But I think that's part of the agreement. If we would love to meet with them and discuss the issues and see how it is we can help them, because I will be honest to say that their viability and continued success is a concern to this board, because that's a large population, it's a large area, this, however many homes, that are tax-paying homes, and it behooves us to try to see that they are successful.
I think it's important to, though, for them to understand, like you said, to limit the discussion publicly available, because we don't want to hear about individuals in the park and their
Absolutely.
financial
Right,
hardships.
right.
Correct.
If that's the case, then the location really doesn't matter.
Public is public, there's only one
Public is public,
type
and
of
then it's just a
public.
matter of there or here.
I'd rather have it there. Consideration of the hour and
The population.
population attending. I think you get more public attendance there due to the other residents.
And if that's if I may, if that's the reason to increase the attendance and make it easier, because there are individuals there that may not be as mobile to get here, I'm fine with that. But if it was just a matter of, for, one location over the other, I would prefer it to be here, so that
Oh,
it
no,
could be
I
just-
I agree with you, because this is where we meet.
Mhm.
Okay. May 4th there, 6 PM, and you would like to limit the discussion to publicly available financial information and long-term planning for the park.
Right.
May 4th. Ugh. I am not, no, I'm not here.
On May 4th?
Yeah, I mean, you can just do it without me, I'm okay with that. I'm in New York.
Okay. Sidewalk policy. Enclosed at 7B in your packet, you have the final draft, hopefully, of the sidewalk policy.
Hopefully.
As well as correspondence related to the policy. It needs the approval of the Department of Justice and the town attorney. Are you ready to adopt?
Yeah, I had one question on this. Wasn't, unless it's something on one of the first drafts that got eliminated on here. But was there a process, because this talks about the qualified individuals?
Mhm.
Wasn't there a process to qualify them at one point? Didn't we have something?
No.
Okay, I thought we did.
Nope.
All right.
The last one you saw was, this is the red line, but I think you can tell what cross out and what should have been red. The last one you saw was this one without the red line.
Yeah, but how do we know if a person is qualified?
I guess, you have to go to ADA training to learn that.
Just a quick follow-up on it, but somebody calls up and says, I'm a qualified person, and this is what I'm putting this request in, and what do we do?
You have to go by the ADA regulations on,
I think it's semantics more so than I think,
the changes were semantics,
yeah,
yes.
I don't, I
Well,
think
they
it was
wanted
just.
to go with a term that's used in ADA
In
and
ADA.
defined in ADA.
No, I understand that, but I thought when we first worked on this, there was a process that,
No, that question came up, that was a discussion, is that you go to the ADA and follow the regulations
Oh,
in the
okay.
ADA
All right.
for qualifying
I didn't-
individuals.
okay, Nick, you had a question?
Yeah, and it has to do with the last sentence of the policy and procedures, which goes along with the U.S. Attorney's letter, where it originally read, when sidewalks are reconstructed, the town will attempt to meet ADA standards whenever possible. And his recommendations were, whenever possible, be stricken.
Because
Since-
there's already allowances in the ADA for slopes issues and other things.
Understood, that we can't say that we might,
Right.
we have to strive to meet it. So my suggestion would be that we would remove attempt to. When sidewalks are reconstructed, the town will meet ADA standards. And if there are any limitations, we would have to go through this process.
Yeah, he okayed this the way it was.
Right.
I just assume not, I mean, this is something that
He approved.
the Assistant US Attorney
Say he approved. He didn't.
approved. Well, he said he wanted some language stricken, which
Yes.
is what we did, but he didn't say about remove attempt,
No,
and he was
said,
very clear.
I suggest that the town revert to the language from the prior draft policy. Sidewalks will be reconstructed in compliance with the ADA.
Yeah, but look at his April 20th email. Mrs. DeRusso, the proposed changes would address my concerns, please let me know. This is when he got the red line. Proposed changes would address my concerns, please let me know whether this revised draft policy is approved by the Board of Selectmen.
Right.
It's on the first page, 7B.
Yep.
That's when he received the red line.
I'm gonna make a motion that we, accept the, and adopt this sidewalk policy, as provided to us tonight.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
It's unanimous.
Okay, I'll get that posted on the website too. Okay, this is just FYI. Channel 16 is planning on doing live streaming. The cable committee approved that. Email was enclosed at 7C in your packets. Also, next week, you'll have estimated shortfalls in 2011 budget as a result of anticipated state downshifting and some higher prices that we have noticed as bids have come in. Also, DPW has sent you 2 emails. One expresses concerns regarding the project of widening Mass Road. The other shares Carl's concerns with the slope and culvert failure on the rail trail. The department has secured the area to protect users from any potential danger, and Carl will be in next week to discuss solutions on the cost of those solutions.
May I pick up
Yep.
on that point,
Go right
please?
ahead, Dave.
I like to provide each board member, here's Sue and Scott, and 3. The email we received from Public Works was a little bit unclear as to the issues going on for the rail trail parcel that's sandwiched in between the county land. And in this drawing you have here, the plan shows up the upper middle of the page, the gully that's eroded. And I've shown that in gray. The entire gully is on county land. As if it continues to erode uphill, yes, it will impact the rail trail. There is a snow barrier, a snow fence type barrier erected to keep the trail users from going towards the steep slope. The 3 pictures on the left-hand side are scenes of that slope. The one towards the middle of the page I took from almost 1/10 of a mile away just to show you the perspective that the erosion is in the middle of the slope, and the rail trail is up on the horizon in that picture. The bottom one is much closer, and you can see the delta of sand as it spreads out in the valley below the slope of the gully. That sand, it's entirely sand, no gravel, no rock. On the other hand, this entire slope has been vegetated for 100 years, and something has caused water to, within the last year, to filter, go right down at this particular spot. And the top picture on the left, right through the center of that picture is the property line. And you can see that the gully is about 8 or 9 feet downhill from the property line. Uphill, right in the center of the point of that, where the gully starts, is a lot of debris, railroad ties, and I believe all of that, plus the trail slightly slopes down towards where this gully is. That's contributing water, and the debris on the hillside is focusing that water right into where it is causing the gully to form. I suspect our Director of Public Works will probably come to something to that conclusion as to why the gully has been forming.
You talking about this debris up here?
Yes. On the right side of the picture, you see a diamond-shaped formation, which is the town rail trail. And that diamond shape protects the granite culvert, which is about 70 feet lower than the rail trail. The inlet side has a blowout where the earth has collapsed into the granite culvert, and you can now see daylight if you poke your head inside the culvert through that blowout. That potentially is could be a problem on how to fix it. You can't get vehicles down into that area.
David, is this on our land?
That is. The blowout is.
Okay. And everything else is on county land, and what are they?
This is county land.
Right. What are they, they're aware of it? What actions are they taking?
No, I'm not sure if the county is aware of this.
So what, I guess, we know what the issues are right now. Are there any steps?
I just wanted to clarify where these are.
Oh, okay.
The erosion gully is directly opposite the pig building, if you're familiar with that area. And then where this, the blowout, where the soil has eroded into the tunnel. The email is correct. The surveyor's, the email's correct in that it says there's a slight bend inside the tunnel as the granite culvert proceeds under the earth embankment. There is a bend in that, but ever so slight. My estimation is the granite culvert is in very good shape, except for that one block that's missing. And I suspect that the inlet was blocked at some time in the past, and water accumulated in the valley behind the inlet. And that water rose up, it found a way to go down through the soil and blow the hole through the side of the granite.
There are
So-
a lot of those box culverts.
Yeah, so I wanted to clarify all that for you today. And the same email made reference to some erosion that is on the Maskey Lake near the rear gate of Surratt Park. If you look at the second page of my handout here, the top photograph shows my car on the edge of the rail trail and a path leading towards my car. That is the rail trail within the last week has been under contract, has been raised about 3 feet. And you can see where the fence line on the left is being reinstalled with a vehicle gate that comes out of Surratt Park. What you see is on the right side of that photograph is dock earth. That used to be a mound, 15 feet high. It's been leveled. It creates a very scenic view as you pass through this area on the rail trail. And now if you go back to the first page, that very scenic view that has created allowed the town engineer and others to go towards the lake, and they discovered that they're on the edge of a 15-foot drop-off. This is a naturally occurring erosion, nothing that's been man-made or man-induced. On the upper right drawing, I drew a line through your picture. That has been staked out for installation of a fence today, and that fence will be installed under the existing contract that we have using the 2010 Recreational Trail Program grant. That grant was sufficient. It'll be a change order to the existing contract, and that grant has sufficient money to absorb the change order. Problem solved. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You're welcome.
Mr. Chairman, I have two issues that arose today. One was a phone call I received from someone on Parsons Drive,
Okay, well,
wondering,
just hang on 1 second. In that, 1 second, I apologize. Okay, no, go ahead. I'm sorry.
wondering if the board was going to be having a public hearing regarding the reuse of the cemetery field on Parsons and North Mass as a recreational field.
We hadn't discussed it?
We did, there was some discussion about notifying abutters of that.
But we didn't discuss having a public hearing.
No, we did not. We talked about a notice to the immediate abutters of the property.
Okay, well, we don't, number one, we don't have anything back
From Parks,
definitive.
right.
Are you looking for an actual design to come back to this board regarding what they're going to do there?
That was
the
my
parking
understanding
and-
that, yeah, because we talked
They
about
were-
head-in
They
parking.
were gonna work
and-
out the
right.
details and get back to us, so.
Well,
And
we're
I,
on
and
that
I told the
subject.
caller that,
Right.
that we don't have any design on it. But he wanted to know if there'd be an opportunity for public comment, or public hearing. If not, he would schedule an appointment with the board to come in and discuss his concerns.
Who was the person?
Tom Mulligan?
He lives right across the street.
Yes.
And I think at one point, I might have had a conversation with him like 2 to 3 years ago, when we were looking at it. While we're on that same subject, because he's not part of that association, I don't think, but where do we stand with all these betterment assessments, for the road? Because we don't have all of our.
I had put an update in your FYI
Right.
last week, I believe it was.
But we still have quite a few that have not paid.
Mhm. We got quite a few, probably we won't get paid until the property ever transfers, if it ever transfers.
I think my response to this inquiry is that, at this point, I believe it's premature, because although we are exploring that opportunity, we talked to the trustees about it, we're still waiting for
We
something.
don't even know if the trustees are amenable to it
Well,
at this point. They were gonna have that
At this
discussion.
point,
No, they said
at
they
this
were
point,
okay.
they said they were okay. We
Well-
also learned subsequent to that, that the deed doesn't say anything about cemetery use.
Right, it was
So-
a town meeting vote,
Correct.
though, to
So,
appropriate the money to buy
in some
more
respects-
cemetery land.
In some respects, according to the deed, it was a courtesy that we asked the trustees. It's technically, it's land that's owned by the town, of which it's within our purview. I think, though, that both parties, the cemetery trustees and the board, talked about a 25-year commitment level or more to making that into a field situation. We talked about the head-in parking, but nothing came back yet to us in terms of Parks and Rec to say, okay, here's what we're looking to do, except for an idea.
I was gonna suggest that when this item comes back to the board for discussion, that we let those, the abutters, as well as near neighbors, people that would be impacted or potentially impacted, know, so that they could be present for that discussion, and if we need to take comment from.
Right, I mean, and we just haven't gotten to that point
Right.
so we haven't had that discussion.
Okay.
You know, we had a preliminary discussion, and one of the things that we're also waiting to hear back from the trustees is whether or not they would be amenable. We had asked them how they felt about leasing to an organization. I mean, so there are a lot of things that were just tossed
I
around.
think the complicating factor here is that, based upon the deed,
Mhm.
the deed places no restriction on the land. 0.
Well, I understand that, but what was the warrant
But
article?
the warrant article talked about it for cemetery use.
Well-
This is very much like
It
when we
was
had the
raised
thing
for
with-
that purpose, yeah.
Right. Very much like that whole kindergarten situation where we had the land from the Water Resources Board where people thought it was for conservation, but it never was, and then ultimately it was put out to vote by the,
But I guess where I'm coming from is if we're we don't have an issue with it being for cemetery use. It's not needed for cemetery use, and we're all looking at least a 20-year horizon.
Right, then there's no
Why go into that?
dispute. There's no
Yeah,
need to
why
bother.
Why
with
get
that.
into that? I mean, we accept the fact that the town, the warrant article
Right.
was to purchase it for cemetery purpose. We don't need it for and it's no different of using the current land that we currently use as a field.
Right.
That's for
Same
cemetery
status
purpose.
quo, I think, except it's on a different part.
Yeah,
different
just
parcel.
relocating the,
So the issue that the trustees were gonna get back to us on was,
Right.
A long-term lease with a, private organization
Right.
possibly, and that may even be a moot issue.
yeah, it might be.
Because we may have the resources, within the town to get it to a point where it's usable for, training and practices.
So I'll just ask Carl and Rick when
Right.
they plan to get a
Yes.
plan back to the
Yeah.
board, and then notify the abutters.
Right, that's fine.
The other one that I received was an email from the chairman of the Conservation Commission that she asked me to read into the record. To the Goffstown Board of Selectmen, as the acting chair of the Conservation Commission, I am requesting selectmen provide the commission some direction on how they would like us to proceed at their April 25th meeting. We have a Conservation Commission meeting set for April 27th this week, and we ask the selectmen to specifically address the following procedural issues. We are aware that your lack of acceptance of 2 volunteer applications leaves 2 voting positions open for your appointment. Until such time that you appoint someone in these positions, they will remain filled by myself and Evelyn Miller. 2, it has been our process in the past to promote alternates into voting members when there is a vacancy in a voting position. Thus, we intend to make Sue Tucker, currently an alternate, a voting member to fill the position left by Evelyn Miller, who has submitted to the commission a letter stating her intent to not remain on the commission under the light of current events. 3, we are aware that a volunteer application has been submitted by Mr. Meany. It has been our process in the past to interview this person at our meeting and make a recommendation to the selectmen. However, at this time, we ask that the selectmen make a decision on this application at their April 25th meeting in order to let the commission have clear direction for leadership at future meetings. 4, if the selectmen allow the commission to follow the process we have used in the past, and if the selectmen appoint Mr. Meany to the commission, then he will fill an alternate voting row, and Susan Tucker will fill the vacant voting position left open by Evelyn Miller's rejection by the selectmen, and I will remain a voting member and chair. Thus, the Conservation Commission for 2011 will comprise the following members. And then she lists all their names and terms. 5, if the selectmen see this matter differently, we request that they precisely identify the voting and alternate roster of the 2011 Conservation Commission. I just want the board to know that we didn't post these committee openings until last Wednesday, so they haven't even been
Right.
posted a week yet. And we did get one application that she references, and we did our normal procedure and gave a copy to Patty, who's a liaison to the commission. But we've only received one application.
Okay, but I have a question. Can you go back and read one thing? You said that you start those out with "we," the word "we"?
We are aware.
No, go back. Number 2, read number 2.
Number 2, it has been our process in the past to promote alternates into voting members when there's a vacancy in a voting position. That one?
Keep
That's,
going.
we intend,
Yeah, we intend. Who is we intend?
I would assume the commission, but,
When did they make that decision to intend?
oh, I don't know, because they're meeting this Wednesday night.
When was that discussion held?
I don't know, it doesn't say.
Does that represent the commission? When was the decision made that that letter was written representing we intend as a commission?
Couldn't tell you. It came
Okay.
in today, that's all I can tell you.
Normally, no, you're right. Normally wait 2 to 3 weeks for that. And we're also waiting for the official list from the town clerk for the,
Was that in a town report? I don't have a copy of it on me, but is that?
It's on the town website.
Are we opening this up to discussion now under this, or I was gonna bring this up under old business, but
well, it's just that this letter came up.
She's looking for direction from the board, and I know you're the rep to that, and so it's gonna come up Wednesday night.
Well, I guess on that note, I just wanna, I'm in disagreement with this board on the process that we're taking with this. Because I think we're going down the path of reinforcing an adversarial relationship with the commission. And I'm just speaking for myself. I think if this board collectively, individually, however, has a feeling that the Conservation Commission is not moving in the direction that we think it should be, and that would only be this board's opinion, I would have thought the first step would have been opening up a dialogue with the Conservation Commission. Expressing what we are, or you, or as a board, is feeling, and potentially reaching some meeting of the minds before we went to the step of, without any explanation, simply not accepting a nomination for reappointment. I don't think it serves a constructive purpose. So I would have preferred a process of meeting, discussing, trying to work out whatever differences this board feels there are, trying to reach an amicable agreement on moving forward, and then, if things to this board's opinion were not to your liking, make suggested changes or make changes. But I think we're going down a path that's going to create, unless the board's intention is replacing everybody on the Conservation Commission at some point, we're creating a more adversarial relationship by going down this path.
I'll just speak for myself again. And again, when I spoke to the newspaper, I spoke on my own behalf. I didn't speak for this board because I don't, we obviously share different beliefs, but this is not the first appointment that I have not voted, this is not the first time that I have voted against an appointment. I've done it before, and I've stated my reasons before. We wanted a different direction. I did it, like I said, I did it before, and I justified my reasons. I didn't open up a dialogue with the Parks and Rec Commission when I wanted to see some changes in the makeup and composition of that board. And as an individual board member, I had no clue where everybody else stands on this. I just wasn't going to second it because I wasn't going to vote for those two individuals. I had no idea what everybody else was going to do. So it's ironic that others may share the same opinion as a need to change the composition of a commission, but that's just my take. I think I've been pretty consistent. If I want to see a change on something, that I don't understand why I would have a conversation with someone, give them another 3-year appointment, and oh, great. No, I don't agree with that necessarily. But and I'm not trying to create an adversarial situation. I think that for these two individuals, that they're very nice people, and if there was an opening on another commission, I probably would appoint them. But for this particular thing, I want to see some more balance, and I've said that publicly before, and I'll say it again. So
We have somebody who applied.
We do.
And I think though that, okay, and it's been posted, how many, since when?
Last Wednesday it was posted.
Okay, so we did get somebody that came forward.
and again, that's the first I've seen of this. There is a lot of we's, and without having a meeting, I don't know how you get a we and make we statements if you haven't collectively had a discussion. I also think it's a little bit presumptuous to say that we would like to see certain people put as alternates, as full members, and put this person here and do that. That's this board's job. And much like an executive branch, whether it be the President of the United States appoints or nominates a Supreme Court justice, et cetera, we have the ability to appoint. And that's something that's in the purview of a selectman. I can speak only for myself. I have no political agenda. I have no ill will towards these two individuals. I had no ill towards a gentleman who was on the Parks and Rec Commission who served us well for many, many years. However, when you want to see a change, I don't personally believe that these things are lifetime appointments, despite how good and qualified people are. Sometimes you need a little bit different perspective in order to grow. We have the luxury here of this board where we get elected. The voters can determine when we need a fresh start, okay? There are people who campaign, I was one of them, to have a fresh start and have a different perspective. I'm also someone who's not gonna run again in the next term because I believe that we need turnover and things. But yet, you know, I just think that you have to, it's the individual prerogative of an individual selectman to decide, you know, who they want on a commission for a variety of different reasons. I've said my piece as to why I voted the way that I did and the position that I'm taking, but that's my own call, you know, and then there's other 4 people, you have your opinions, and these others have their opinions. But I'd like to see what happens, you know, is there anyone else interested? If there's no one else interested, then it really is a moot issue, because these people serve until they are replaced, you know, so it becomes, it's moot, you know, and with all these alternates that we have alternates that are open.
Alternates are voting members.
Right. So I think they still function as they're functioning now.
Steve?
I'm just gonna comment a little bit there. And I'm gonna probably, I agree with Selectman Gross that it was when the first vote came up, and you had actually brought up the initial, you were looking for the second, I think it was I think it caught everyone, at least I would expect it caught the 4 of us off guard that there was no second, because normally that second comes from someone who's in support. And so I think that's what brought that awkward silence, because no one had spoken to each other regarding this, and I think it kind of reflective of the 4 members who did not second it. It kind of brings out the fact that the 4 who did refrain from giving a second were not in favor of the direction that the Conservation Committee has gone. And I don't think it was, and for me, it was not anything particular with those people. It was just that direction. And I think we're still sitting here trying to stumble through it a little bit, because at this point, you're wondering if there are other people who, you know, for me anyway, I'm wondering if there are other people who would volunteer and who would like to be part of that committee. And I do think there is a part where it is good to have people with different views and different, and it balances out a group. And I know that some of the people who spoke here today were concerned that, you know, they were saying, oh, you're looking for someone from business. I'm not necessarily looking for someone from business, but I'm looking for someone with a different point of view. So when when a group gets together, you have the different sides, have discussion, and I think when you do have that, that's when you have your best decisions. In fact, I find it interesting just with this board here, most of the time when, you know, we end up with these 3-2 votes, and you never know what side you're gonna end up, but it gives good discussion, and it lets you pick at all the different parts or points of a discussion, and yeah, I think you come up with a better vote. So I would like to see a different direction myself, but also I'd like to see that direction come from the Conservation Committee when other people are put in there, so they can think not think differently, but have different points of opinion.
Nick?
If I may, I do just want to go back to a couple of things when you mentioned Parks and Rec. And that was a different circumstance, because this board discussed numerous times the direction of the Parks and Rec Commission. And it was very clear that we were not in agreement with their direction, and that we were looking to change the complexion of Parks and Rec Commission, because I remember on the nights of those nomination, we had a full audience here, because it was common knowledge that that was gonna happen. I just don't agree with the way, without any pre-discussion, we've just left 2 individuals hanging, not knowing what this board's thinking was. And we've had members of this board vehemently work against even posting a volunteer position, because what kind of message does that send to our volunteers? And it's very difficult to get volunteers, and if we even post that we want to have someone else apply for a position, we're not sending the proper message. But now, on this hand, we just bring up a nomination and we don't even discuss it.
Scott?
Again, The reason why I didn't bring it up as a discussion, because I had no clue where the rest of you stood. I thought I would be like I was alone on some of these other nominations where I voted against a nomination. It was a 4-1 vote. There's no need for me to discuss it and to say, hey, here is where I have some disagreement. I'd like to see a different change. And I found that I was actually very surprised at the dead air for 20 seconds when no one seconded it. So obviously there was some concurrence with what my thought process is, but I'm not gonna go and raise something as an issue if I think I'm gonna be in the minority. And that's what I thought I was that night. And then the subsequent meeting, I would have liked to have the opportunity to discuss it in non-public with an individual. Yeah, I wasn't prepared to talk about it publicly. One of my concerns with that is when you do speak publicly, maybe that individual, Kimberly wanted that public, but ultimately sometimes that public discussion then mentions other names and it affects someone else's reputation. So I wasn't prepared to do that. Last week I stated my reason. I've stated my reason to the media, and I've stated it again tonight. It has nothing to do with those two individuals. They're good people. I respect them. In other avenues, I respect them immensely, actually, one of them in particular. But in this particular thing, I like to see some more balance and a different thought process come to the table. We don't have that. And for as much as this is difficult, I also think it provides an opportunity for our community and for our board to get a diverse set of thoughts and opinions. And that's why I did it. I can't speak for everybody else.
Yes, Dave.
I'll just take one comment. I don't believe the board is stumbling along. We made an announcement. We're seeking applications. That's a positive step forward, not stumbling. And the announcement's only been out there for 1 week. I would hope that by the end of 3 weeks, we'll have more than one. And that'll give us some leeway as to where we wish then to go. Thank you.
Well, I did think that it was quite clear that the town administrator was given a direction to post those, so, and I find that interesting that it's been posted, and it happens to be a person who fills in as chair and vice chair. And now that I've heard that it's so hard to fill these positions that somebody's coming forward, which was one of the points that was brought out when it was suggested that we post it, because maybe somebody would come forward. And it appears that that's what's happened, so that's all I can say. I don't know if there's any more.
So in response, we just tell her the board did not take action because it hasn't been posted long enough, so they did not take action on the
I think it's
application.
business as usual until other people step up and volunteer, and we have the ability to, vet them, and nothing changes. I mean, they are still in their roles. There are still alternates. They're still gonna make recommendations to different bodies. Nothing has changed. It is limbo, I understand that, but we have now, I'm learned that we have one individual who's interested, with the potential of another opening. Actually, it could be a couple of different openings, because there are some vacant alternate positions, and, we can entertain those as well. But, it's been less than a week.
Okay. If I may, so we're basically asking them to just continue working, volunteering until we find someone to replace them.
If they so choose.
Yeah.
Was that the last item?
Yes.
So, next item is Selectmen's discussion, new business. Did you have new business with this, Dave? With the DPW stuff, with the rail trail, or did you?
We covered that.
Yeah, I didn't know if you had any.
We did have, under the DPW item, one sentence we didn't discuss. It was, Director of Public Works expresses his concern about the widening of Mass Road.
Well, that's old business, isn't it?
I think it's
If you
becoming
wish,
new
yes,
business
it could
again.
be, it's old.
Okay, all right.
Well, he's coming in next week to discuss it.
And my point is, he's coming in next week to express
Okay.
his concerns. So
No, I didn't know if there was anything on the rail
we'll
trail
do that.
that was new business, since you bring up a lot of things on that, that's all. Is there any other new business? Any old business?
Goals, when are we
Uh,
discussing goals?
yeah, we were gonna do the goals the end of the month.
Yeah.
Did you all have a chance to talk to your committees
did.
and?
Yeah, I did, but I didn't have
Departments?
everything written down, and I don't have it with me.
Okay, I'll put it on for next week.
Yeah, why don't you do that, 'cause it's not on the agenda. Instead of having it come up on the old business, let's put it down as an agenda item.
Okay.
Okay. Anything else?
I'm sorry, I do have old business. It's the Transportation Enhancement Grant for the rail trail. Public Works released a request for qualifications. 9 firms submitted a desire to be the design firm for that. And a review committee has narrowed it down to 1 firm. The scoring sheets and the comments on why we picked that 1 firm have been sent to the Department of Transportation to review how we made our selection and did we follow the proper process. After the Department of Transportation vets that process, then it'll be brought forward to this board to accept the contract with that firm. So that's the status of where we are in that process.
Okay, but you don't require any action from the board? then?
No, it's just for your information, that's where we are. We've narrowed it down to 1, and we're waiting for the Department of Transportation to confirm that we followed the correct selection process.
Any questions of David? Any other old business? Committee reports? Library trustees?
I did not get a chance to make it to that meeting. I had another meeting I had to attend, but I did meet with Diane, and I met with her on Saturday at the library and got a chance to speak with her for about an hour and a half. And one of the issues that did come up during the meeting was that the Library Board of Trustees discussed the change in the wage line, which was that 5 additional hours that when they changed from one budget to the other. And I guess for the first 6 months of this year, that person's been working the additional 5. They didn't realize to make the change, and they're not sure if it was how that was supposed to have been communicated down. But either way, they've made the adjustment, and they will, the extra $6,000 they spent in wages, they have it within their budget that they'll make changes within the budget, and they'll be okay for the rest of the year. The library trustees, they're also going to be, 4 of them will be attending the annual conference at the Hampshire Library Trustees Association on May 19th. And the only other issue they really spoke about was CIP, and part of when I was speaking with Diana, talking about the idea of how they would plan or the expansion of the library, which would be going towards the other parking lot, but they're looking at dates that are very far out, obviously. And I think the last time the number I heard was somewhere around 2016 or something, so they're looking for that and having those discussions for CIP.
Okay, any questions of Steve? Okay, Parks and Rec.
All right, very long meeting for Parks and Rec. I'm going to try to hit some of the bigger issues first. As you recall, Selectman Fournier and Selectman Pierce talked about the future use of the former Barnard land, which the town purchased a couple of years ago. According to my knowledge, those discussions were held with all the departments as to what their needs were. And at this point, the Parks and Rec Commission would like to tackle this project. From what my knowledge is, DPW, in terms of that site, obviously it's a materials excavation. The police department's concerns were a firing range, practice range, which is on the current DPW site, so there's really no issues there. In speaking with the fire chief, There are no current plans for a central station, and as a matter of fact, it's my understanding that his CIP proposals will be to renovate existing stations. That being said, there is the potential of reserving a portion of the land for future municipal use, but it would be a field, just like we use Cemetery Field and others for field space, knowing that at some point in the future, 10, 20, 30, 50 years from now, something could potentially be built on it. That being the case, since there are no other municipal type needs and they've all been hashed out, Parks and Rec is looking for a vote from our board to allow them to start a process where it'll be an ad hoc committee where they can get stakeholders to come to the table and talk about the future use of that. They also talked about using some of their impact fee money for a study and for conceptuals. And they do have impact fee money, and this would be something where they could take a look at what is feasible in terms of put uses for the land, where it could be, and then after that, obviously then you're talking about engineering and some other things, but they wanted this was Howard Sobolov, who was on the commission, has done this before as the athletic director in Londonderry, and he's used a particular individual, and he said that the process worked out well. I think they spent around $5,000, but it was money well spent because they did a lot of planning, and it wasn't a haphazard type thing. So what they're looking for from us is the kind of the go-ahead to spearhead it now. Knowing what I just elaborated on, they will probably come back to the board for permission to use Parks and Rec impact fee money to have this study done. And then from there, as we talked about, we're going to have members from the community at large, having a member from, different committees that may have an impact. Conservation Commission being one, just Harry Brook is right by there. DPW, a selectman, members at large, et cetera. But they really want to go full bore and get a plan to us by the end of the year. So that if there's any action that we want to take, whether it be a vote at town meeting or whatever, they will have a plan in place as to what this thing is going to look like. They'll be working obviously with Carl and DPW to say, okay, as we excavate section A, and once that's done, this can now be used as a field for this. Now we go to section B and we excavate, and there are the nice thing about using this impact fee money for a study is that this particular model, and that is taking a sand pit and reclaiming it for ball fields, has been done in other parts of New Hampshire. And Howard and others have been to those fields, and they know how they're done. And so does this individual, and they'd be able to help us. So I think it's a good idea. They're just looking for our permission or our directive to say, okay, we've done our due diligence with the different departments, and now we want to put it into your court to spearhead it. That's where we're at. So I don't know if that does require action on our board's part to give them that go ahead.
So you had a comment? Question?
Yeah, I just want to make sure everyone realizes that Parks and Rec committed quite a bit of their impact fee money towards the rail trail.
They have enough.
For a study?
It's $5,000, and according to Rick, they have more than that in impact fee money.
So design for that parcel for athletic field is going to be under 5,000?
No,
Oh.
no, it's a study, not a design per se.
Okay.
What you may get is, just to let you know, Kurt Lauer was kind enough a few years back to do kind of conceptual type drawings.
Yeah.
This would go a lot further beyond that. It would not be engineering, it would just be, facilitating a discussion amongst all stakeholders. So let's say hypothetically that Carl would definitely be a stakeholder, obviously. You may have different sports groups, football, baseball, softball, lacrosse, who may want to, Parks and Rec commissioners, conservation, they would facilitate like a charrette or something as to what this thing would do, and then come up with what the plan is. And that's really what it's like. It's not going to be full-blown design or engineering. It's really more of when the Hillsborough County did their charrette on that property, just trying to, this is
Kinda
where
like a brainstorming session.
brainstorming and then getting everybody's thoughts and then trying to say, okay,
They come up with a
lay,
plan.
and then laying out where we think, and then from there, then you turn it over to an engineer. That's when you need a lot more money.
Right.
And then it's like, because you have different
Well,
elevations and
would this have been eligible for the Plan New Hampshire grant that comes out every year?
it's,
Rather than using
that may be the case where we could get the engineering or some other things done. But I think they wanna push ahead with this. It's not a ton of money. They have it in impact fee money. It is definitely an expansion. So
The other stakeholder or the other thing that may come out is the actual master plan for that area.
right.
Which envisioned that as a village node. Remember last
Mm-hmm.
time we did the master plan and there was some, I think, commercial indicated in that area.
Yes, in the note it was.
Yeah, there was, because there is some commercial.
But at this particular point, we could certainly have somebody from EDC on, on this thing as well to talk about what are the potential of a private, public type,
Or something that would blend with your future.
you could have a private enterprise put, one of those sports bubbles, and now you're getting tax revenue from a private group, but yet it aligns very nicely with outdoor recreational facilities. So, there are some other things that you could do, but I think we've had this land for about a year and a half, 2 years, we really haven't done much. We took a vote last March.
Oh, just-
We really haven't done much,
We haven't even had it, owned it for a year.
Yeah,
I think we
I know.
closed in
I know.
August, didn't we?
I know.
Yeah.
I was
So-
gonna say it was the fast 2 years.
But we
but
all
it's
know
okay.
how these things go, and they take a long time, and we all know that we're not gonna be doing much on this property for 5 or 10 years out, but you gotta start with a plan. So,
Okay, will that plan, look at the adjacent parcel that needs to be reclaimed
yes,
first?
yes, all of it, all inclusive, because what was discussed was that parcel was, for all intents and purposes, a little over excavated.
Mhm.
So you would have to take fill or materials from the other parcel to reclaim the sand pit. That would be the first thing that would happen. You also have to talk about roads in terms, and then what's your excavation strategy, and that's what Parks and Rec wants to do over the next 6 months, is to try to develop what is our strategy, get the stakeholders together, and also explore the possibility of these long-term leases and other things to get this thing going.
Could they also look at potential building sites
Yes,
for Parks and Rec?
yes,
Because I think in the future, it may be beneficial for us to look at relocating Parks and Rec where they are now to a larger facility, then utilize their present location as maybe a commercial entity for the trailhead, bike rental, kayak rental, whatever, there's
sounds like you're gonna
different,
be on this committee, Nick.
there's different
as a selectmen's
possibilities
rep.
there.
Do you wanna do that? I don't
Sure.
care. I think, the more brain power, on this thing, the better. I just think that they are very eager to start the process. And I think we spent the last 2 to 3 months, 4 months, trying to see what the needs were. We've kinda done that, and now we're at a point of, let's start to move on this thing. Because it's gonna take many years for it to, even start to come to
Right.
fruition. So if it's okay with the chair, I'd like to make a motion that we grant approval to the Parks and Recreation Commission to work with Carl and our town administrator to create an ad hoc, or a committee for the purpose of the development of the former Barnard land into municipal excavation, municipal fields, and future municipal use.
Hey, when you talk about this committee, is this gonna be a committee that we appoint?
We would appoint, yeah.
Question. Because sometimes with ad hocs, there has to be a start, and there has to be, for me, there's a start date, and then there's an end date. How long do you think this one would be going?
Okay, if you're asking me, I think that the start date would be as soon as we can get people kind of committed to be on it, which might be a month or so, or 2, to get the volunteers. I think from what I'm hearing from Parks and Rec is that they would like to submit something to us by the end of the year. So now, that would be a phase one, in my opinion, and you're gonna have people that are, just like anytime you're building anything, there's always like that first phase, what are your needs, you're assessing what your needs are, and then you start to go into like your construction documents, and then in the phase three is the actual execution of the plan. I see people serving on the committee, which is gonna kind of brainstorm and have what's the concept. Then I see it then going over to engineering, and then finally I see it as actual construction, and I see that as a three-phase process that's gonna take many years, and people might serve on one, and then maybe a few will go on to phase two, and then a few might go on to phase three for continuity purposes, but it may be different people along the way. Because I envision this as something that's gonna take maybe 6 months for concept, a year for engineering or more, and then actual execution of the plan could take 5, 10 years. It's very possible. But at least we have a plan that we can, it's a blueprint that we can use as a map forward. Regardless of who's around the table here or on the commissions, we've got some sort of a plan for that parcel. So, are you okay with the motion, or
That's what I was gonna ask, if anybody wants to second that.
I'll second.
Okay, is there further discussion? Any further? No? All those in favor?
Aye.
It's unanimous.
Next thing is, we talked about the pools. That was a big discussion last year during budget
Okay.
season. They're gonna start work on the pools in a few weeks, I believe. Actually, I think it was sometime in May, but their target completion date is gonna be June 1st. And I know that's kind of aggressive, but they're gonna start, I think, with the Barnard Pool first, and they're gonna do Roy Park second, and they said they need about a week to do each pool. So, I think that probably aligns pretty closely. It's cutting it a little bit close with the opening of the summer season, but I think we do that towards the end of June, right? We open up the pools? When school gets out. So I think we've got about a 3-week buffer with the vendor.
Now, when do they start putting out for lifeguards?
I don't know.
I think he did
I think he already does that, yeah.
Okay, I just
Yeah.
wanted to make sure that it didn't get,
Yeah.
fall through the cracks and we have a
What I'm talking
pool, we
about.
have no lifeguards.
The other thing that came up is a gentleman named Ken Richard, Lead Dog Builders. He came before us, or the 250th committee. He wanted to build a gazebo/bandstand. And at first, we went to the library trustees because we thought they might be interested in having it on their property. They declined. Then went to Parks and Rec Commission, and they accepted. They tossed out some possible locations, and they took a vote. Last week at the meeting, we did a site walk, actually, of Barnard, and they took a vote to place this bandstand/gazebo next to the tennis courts as you come in. There's kind of like a grassy area with trees with a black chain link thing, and to put it close to the tennis courts there. And it's a 10 or 12 feet by 20 feet. And so they made a recommendation to accept this. The materials, from what Ken told me, are being donated by Mast Road, and Lead Dog Builders is going to construct it. So it'll have a value of under $5,000, so we don't have to necessarily have a public hearing, but this board would have to approve the concept and accept it so that Ken can kind of start work. If you want me to bring you back, more information, I can certainly do that, but Ken has already kind of secured the material donation, and he himself is gonna be the one building it.
Okay, I have one question for
Yeah.
you. What's this gonna be used for?
It's gonna be used for, mostly for like concerts, and it'll be decorative in nature for one, so visually it'll be very appealing, but it'll be used as a place where you can put a musical group, kind of like a
Electrical
bandstand.
outlets on it.
Yeah.
Okay, so I guess the only question that I have, since this is something that the town would be accepting,
Yeah.
since we're gonna be accepting this, we're gonna have people on it. We need to make sure that whatever is required,
Mark, right. getting
Yeah.
Mark involved.
Yeah, get Mark involved somehow.
Yeah. I mean, with inspections and.
Just
and-
so
and
that,
this- right.
just so that there's something in the record that it was done properly.
Okay, so, Sue, if that's okay, then we would need a permit, a building permit on town land? So maybe that's the easiest way of doing it, so everything is
You
official.
can waive the fee
We
since
can waive
it's
the
being
fee.
donated.
So, if it's okay with the chair, I'll make a motion that we approve and accept the donation of a gazebo bandstand for Barnard Park with the condition that the donor file the appropriate permits with the town waiving the fee. Is that?
What's the value?
It'll be under 5,000, yeah.
Are the materials under 5?
Yeah,
Really?
yes, yeah. It's all a lot of that's labor, you know?
I thought we, excuse me, Mr. Chair, I thought we accept the value of the structure, which would be
Well,
labor and materials.
well, I guess,
The other thing is it has to appear on an agenda, that's the law, even if
Okay.
it's under 5,000.
right,
So-
but.
Public hearing for 5,000, but it
Okay.
has to appear
Then
on a
you wanna,
selectman's agenda.
I'll tell you what, why don't you put it on next week's agenda, and
Okay.
I know that Ken did a conceptual drawing of what it would look like for Parks and Rec, which Rick has, color one, and then I'll get that to you, or if you can follow up with Rick and get it.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
as far as
Value.
David's question, okay? Because this question comes up sometimes, and if it goes into, let's say, the purpose of insurance, when you get to value, it could be replacement value, it could be the actual cost, because if somebody paid X amount of, let's say somebody paid $3,000 for an item, and is claiming, well, the retail value of that item is really $10,000, so the value was $10,000. No, you paid $3,000. In this case, if the material, the cash outlay that he's donating to us is the cash outlay, that's a cash value. But the question comes in, do we have to include a value for the labor? And I don't know the answer to that question. So if we have to have a public hearing, it might be we might be just better off having the public hearing. And I don't know the answer to
Yeah,
unless.
the thing, right, I mean, one thing that I wanna try to, make clear here is that this gentleman came before the 250th committee, that's how I got involved in it, and he wanted to do it as a nice thing to give back for the town's 250th. I also walked, so you know, I walked with Rick the other day, we went to the town common, and it just doesn't, the town common's just a little too small for this thing. So I don't have a problem having the public hearing if you think that'll cover ourselves, because all that is a formality
Well,
technically.
where I'm coming from on that.
Yeah.
If we accept this gazebo, and we put, there's a value placed on it because the material costs, let's say, $3,500, okay? I don't want anybody to have the expectation they're gonna get one of those gazebos from this guy for $3,500. So,
Yeah, I think we should get an estimate of the material costs and the labor costs and just advertise it as
All right.
total
Can you
value.
follow up with Rick on that then, and
Rick,
Wilhelmy, he'll get
okay.
it from Ken. I mean, I
Okay.
might see Ken tomorrow night, but.
Go through the proper public hearings for something over 5,000.
And, I'm gonna segue just a little bit.
well, let me
Yeah.
just back up one minute,
Yeah.
because we did vote on a motion,
Right,
and then you had the,
we didn't vote on that
No.
motion.
no, we voted on,
The other motion.
He made a motion,
It
but it
didn't-
wasn't
no,
seconded.
It wasn't seconded, so we're done. I'll
no,
withdraw.
no, didn't we vote on this in the first place?
I made a motion, but no one seconded it, and I'll withdraw it, because it'll be put on our agenda next week.
Okay, fine.
Unless it has to go to public hearing, and then I have to notice it in the paper 7 days before, so.
Well,
It
why
would
don't
be
you,
the
why don't
following
why don't
week.
you
Why don't
do
we
that?
do it
Just do it
no
now.
matter
'cause
what?
This way he can start, his other thing too is that
7
Parks and
days
Rec,
won't
we're
make
trying to
it.
press
So
him.
we'll make it.
What?
But if we wait till next week, then it'll be another extra week.
Right.
Parks and Rec was trying to press to see if he could do it before to have it done, during this, this early summer, which he needs time then, he would need his approval to do that.
I think what I'm hearing is sometimes we get into these processes and it takes I think the gentleman's making a great gesture, I think, and I understand the caution piece, but sometimes it draws out so long, I hate to see it draw out in this gentleman.
Yeah, I know, but we have to follow the
I
statute.
understand it, I'm just saying, maybe we
You
can.
know, we don't follow the statute right and somebody gets hurt.
Right, but this is not something that's gonna be a $10,000, gazebo. I mean, we may be close, it might be, is it $4,500? Is it $5,400? I don't know, but I am sensitive to the fact that here's a guy who's trying to do something good, and I don't wanna put him through all these hurdles, because we're gonna be around, we might be over by $400. I mean, if someone's gonna bitch about that one, then.
If I may.
Go ahead, Dave.
I view this as a legacy donation to the town due to the 250th anniversary. That doesn't mean it has to be ready for our town parties, but if it's done during this year, that satisfies the goal of being a legacy donation to the town during our
Right, and I
celebration
appreciate
year.
your sentiment on that, but I also have a Parks and Rec Commission that's saying, wow, why do I want this thing built and done in October 15th when we could make use of it during the summer and get one more year's use? But because we have to go through all this different rigmarole stuff, we won't be able to use it for a year, which is the year in which we're having a 250th. So that's the only kicker there. I think that we could be in good shape if we can do it with a public hearing, but just advertise it now.
I also have some personal knowledge about the workload of the firm doing the construction, and I know of 2 projects that he's already committed on.
But he's gonna delay yours.
I wasn't gonna put my name in the public. So, maybe you need to talk to, if he has 3 or 4 weeks of availability, if he can wait 3 or 4 weeks, then we have the time for the public hearing.
Well, I'll see, I think he's coming to our 250th meeting. I'll check with him tonight. I'll get with Phil and.
And I filed a building permit too.
Okay. So, segueing on, same thing, Parks and Rec, it is the 32nd annual Goffstown Gallop, and one of the commissioners, Bill Sullivan, is donating like commemorative 250th medals, for it, which is kinda cool. And, other than that, like I said, it was a pretty.
And the value of those?
What? $5,122.
Are they
No.
silver? Silver's going up.
No, it's $50 an ounce. I believe it was under 1,000. So.
So that still has to be accepted by the board.
Yeah, just let Rick know, because I don't think Rick knows. I mean, some of the he's kind of new to the whole thing, So. That being the case, there's a lot of things being donated for the Gallop, which never have been, by the way, right? Accepted as donations, right? I mean, there's a lot of things there are a lot of sponsors that give, and we talked about, I'll segue into this whole 250th thing. We have to have a process now where we're getting checks from people, and it could be $10, it could be $500, it could be $1,000 sponsorship, which we're gonna have to accept at some point, publicly.
And some will be anonymous, because they're just cash in the bottles, firework bottles.
Right,
So-
and others are checks, and we have a list of all those people, so we're gonna have to at some point come up with a list, and then.
Cash in a bottle, huh?
Yeah, they've done all right, I mean, so, I just wanted you to be aware of that.
Okay. He's done? Any other questions of Scott?
Any more donations?
Any more,
Okay, solid waste?
There was not a meeting of the solid waste last week.
That's a
Several-
quick report.
Several members were unfortunately absent.
Okay. Any questions of David? 250th?
Oh, I got a whole.
Oh,
This is gonna
God.
take a long time, and I'm
thought
glad
we-
that you asked, because I
thought we
do
just
have.
did that.
It's like he's never moved from that seat over there sometimes.
I did,
Isn't that the truth? Isn't that the truth?
This is all the work that we did last week,
Scott, do you want to sit here?
no. Okay, we held a logistics meeting, last Thursday, as well as an abutter meeting to let folks know about the block party that we're having. Only 2 residents showed up for the abutter meeting, and he was one of them. Overall, I thought it was very productive, and we did get, actually, David and Sandy Brown was there as well, and I thought it brought up some pretty good points that will help us with regard to that. We did add an event, which we had tentative plans for, but now it is definitely final, and that is there'll be a summer concert at Roy Park. And that'll take place on Saturday, July 23rd, from 6 to 8 p.m., and it's going to be a concert / ice cream social, and we're securing the sponsors for that as we speak. And, we've been working with just a lot of different sponsors over the last week or two, trying to, kind of solidify that. Met with Union Leader and the Goffstown News to try to exchange, in lieu of sponsorship, some promotional opportunities. I'm waiting to hear back a proposal from them. And other than that, the big news for us is that we will be selling gala ball tickets starting May 1st. And one of the places where we will be selling them will be Town Hall, so I just wanted to, if I need permission from you, or hopefully that's kind of tacit approval, to do that. We're also going to be selling them at local businesses, and we'll be putting posters up around town. So those tickets will go on sale May 31st. May 1st.
Are you gonna man a little table upstairs with the tickets?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
They actually emailed me. We bought the tickets from a company, and I guess they do online ticket purchase too. It's kind of, yeah, so I have to read that email.
So people will be able to buy it online, you can put it on a website?
Yeah, I have to check into it. I just got aware of it. The other thing that I mentioned last week was that I spoke with Tom Sousa, and he is going to be helping us a lot with printing up these billboard advertisements, and I did get commitments from a few private landowners.
Are we gonna need a public hearing?
No.
Okay.
You just got me going. I don't think, do I? I hope not. No, I think that'll be under.
Okay.
So I have some private landowners, as well as I've been having discussions with Sue about some places that are town property where we can put these. I think it's gonna be somewhere between 4 and 5 kind of billboards, and they're gonna be, Tom said that he can make them as small as 4 by 8 and or larger, and we just have to, he said it depends upon what road you're at, where you put them. But he
And
said,
zoning,
what?
and zoning,
All right, so what do I need for that?
sign permit application.
Get me the permits, fill them out for me, and
Would any of these be held at the waterfront?
the waterfront?
I'm confusing you, I'm sorry.
All right.
It's late.
And this
It's
is,
late.
yeah. And I just wanna make sure that I'm doing this all, so I need a sign permit?
Sign permit for signs, yes.
Okay. Now,
Would it be a temporary sign
temporary,
permit?
For
technically?
signs, yeah,
All right.
and approval of the board to put it on town property.
All right, so you'll get that next week, all right? And I think that's about it. Yeah, that's it.
You sure?
Yeah, I'll put that on my to-do list now. Sign permits.
Any other committee reports?
And there's no fee for that.
Any other business?
Question, I brought it up earlier. I may have a commitment Wednesday evening and may be unable to make conservation.
Oh,
Next week is the,
yeah,
so
this Wednesday.
I will try my hardest to make that meeting.
Yeah,
I think it's
because
an important
I do
meeting.
have a meeting.
So I don't know if there's anybody else
I
that's
do too.
available to.
Anybody available?
And I would contact that person on Wednesday to let them know whether or not.
Let me check my calendar, looks like it's coming my way, I take it then.
Just throwing that out.
I'll give you a call, let me just check my calendar.
Okay. Any other business?
Non-public.
Do we have non-public? We have one item in non-public, I believe.
E,
Motion to enter non-public for, RSA 91-A:3 2A.
You have
Well,
E
E.
and A, which one would you like to go in, unless you're okay with E?
Well, did we do A before?
We did one A,
Okay, so we have, okay,
you have a second A and you have E, but if everyone's okay with the draft letter, you don't have to go in under E.
I am happy.
I was happy with it.
I'm happy with the draft letter.
Yep, I was too.
is that okay?
Okay, so you just have to go in under A.
Okay. Is
I'm
that a
okay
motion?
with that draft response as well.
Oh, you were? Okay.
So we're going in under A.
A,
Okay.
yeah.
Is there a motion?
Get a motion.
Is there a second?
Yes.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstaining? Roll call.
Yes.
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 Okay, we are in non-public session, and I don't